Morning, everyone. My apologies for, I'm not sure what's happening with WebEx, but it wasn't working for me this morning, so I apologize. I have about 9:15 a.m. calling the meeting to order. This meeting of the Board of Chiropractic Examiners is being held by teleconference. The date is Friday, August 1st, 2025. The time is 9:15. The board's paramount responsibility is to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the public through licensure, education, engagement, and enforcement in chiropractic care. Members of the public may address the board meeting during the public comment session. Public comments will also be taken on agenda items at the time the item is heard and prior to the board taking action on said items. Those who would like to provide public comment will be limited to 3 minutes unless in the discretion of the board circumstances require a longer period. Members of the public may not be permitted to yield their allotted time to other members of the public to make comments. Individuals may appear before the board to discuss items not on today's agenda. However, the board may not discuss or take action on these items except to decide whether to place them out of the agenda of a future meeting. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded. Please turn off or silence all cell phones. We will now take the roll call. Ms. Cruz, will you take the roll call?
Yes. Dr. Adams?
Present.
Dr. Daniels?
Present. Do you want our addresses and if there's public members?
Thank you. And actually, let's do this again. I want to double check with council that we would list our name, our address, and confirm if there is public members. And when we do future kind of, I like say as motions, we would not mention address or, but we would only mention if someone is a public member is present when we do public comment. Is that correct?
Good morning, everybody. Yes, that's correct. So in our roll call, we're going to go ahead and check all our addresses against the agenda addresses and confirm if you have any members of the public present. Cameras would be helpful also today as we are all remote, right? And as we go through the meeting for public comment, just please let someone know if someone does show up over there. So we don't keep asking every location if they have public comment. We'll just be asking in the...
Perfect.
Thanks.
All right. So let's start over. Dr. Adams.
Present. 101 Andrick Street, Sonoma, California, 95476. There are no public members present.
Thank you. Dr. Daniels.
Present. 1165 Park Avenue, San Jose, California, and there are no public members present.
Ms. Cruz. 38 Blue Water Circle, Sacramento, California, 95831, and there are no members of the public present. Dr. Azzolino.
Sergio Azzolino, 1545 Broadway, San Francisco, no members of the public present.
Thank you. Dr. Paris.
Present. 3455 Knighton Road, Redding, California, 96002, no members of the public present.
And Mr. Sweet.
Yes, present. 4100 West Alameda Avenue, 3rd floor, Burbank, California, 91505, and there are no public members present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay. We will go to agenda item 2. Public comment for items not on the agenda. Just those that are in the public that may have a comment on this agenda item that we may not address any issues at this time. Advise the public it's voluntary to share your name if you would like to, but you don't have to. This will be recorded. Can we open this agenda item for public comment?
Absolutely. WebEx is now open for public comment on items not on the agenda. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand. And for our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. And first, we're going to call on Marcus Strutz. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 15-second warning before your time expires. I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. If you are on a mobile device, you may need to hit the ... in order to find your unmute. If you're on a desktop computer, you should find it in the center of the screen. I'm going to send you another request, Marcus. All right, Marcus, do us a favor, raise a hand again, please.
Hello?
Marcus, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning to the board members and all the people who work at the board. Appreciate what you do. I don't think I really need to say anything. Everyone knows what I'm going to say, which is super frustrated with the unbelievably slow movement on the change of the CE rules and regs to change the live requirement to a option of live requirement for Zoom requirement, so for distance learning. It's been going on since October of 2022, trying to push it through. And then there was a new movement in March to get it pushed through. It's now August 1st. It was supposedly going to be done before this meeting. Obviously, that hasn't happened. The pathway obviously is broken. I urge the board members and the people working for the board to establish a pathway to make changes on something this simple. Obviously, 3 years, 2 years, whatever you want to call it, is completely unacceptable. But the biggest problem I see is when the board does need to make a change from something as simple as this, it should not take 3 years to get it through. So the folks that are holding this back or not doing their job, that needs to be identified and that needs to be changed, because there are other changes coming up with the new CE rules and regulations. And I'm assuming at some point there will be some error that will show up that we didn't see coming, and we'll all want to make a change, and then it's going to be another 2 or 3 years to make that change. We're eagerly awaiting the big change of getting the fees that are $116 per hour for a CE course, and getting that situation rectified. And supposedly that's happening as well, but that pathway again is unbelievably slow. And so somewhere, somehow, it should be possible that the board members, which are all awesome chiropractors, and the director of the board, executive officer of the board, should be able to pave a pathway so this can be expedited versus this ongoing thing of waiting and frustration. And obviously everyone's frustrated with it, myself, of course, and all the chiropractors who continue to have to travel back and forth to hotels and conference meetings and things of that nature across the globe. Actually, I get emails almost daily of when's it happening, and it just hasn't happened. And it's extraordinarily frustrating. And hopefully the chiropractic board members can push on this, whether it's contacting the Department of Consumer Affairs and raising a little heck with them, or putting a fire under someone so someone gets moving on this. But the pathway is really what's not established, and that's really what needs to be done. And it's been a long, sad history of that with the chiropractic board. So anyway, I know you've heard me say that before. I will continue to say that until the situation is rectified. And I appreciate your time and everything you do. And thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
And that was our only request for public comment for this item.
Okay, we can close the public comment. Thank you. Are we ready for agenda item 3? Okay, I'll move quickly. I apologize everyone for what happened there. It's a pretty easy transition to get on to WebEx in here. So but I'll be very brief. There's a couple things I want to highlight. I want to first of all welcome our new staff. I know Kristen has been working tirelessly to to get things reorganized and to get new staff hired. And she's been diligent in doing that and has added several members. And during her executive office report, she will introduce those staff members that have hit the running. Dr. Daniels and I had an opportunity to, on June 20th, to go up there in our capacities as chair and vice chair to visit personally with the staff and those that were able to attend. Some of the new staff were there. We had a wonderful question and answer time and spent a good 2.5 hours up there and very productive time meeting with Kristen as well about what's happening relative to Sunset and many of the things that the board's been working to push through, and just understanding a little bit more what's happening at the board level with staff and some of the challenges they face as we're doing a lot of heavy lifting and pushing a lot of regs through that had kind of stalled out for many years before. So we're excited that we got good people on board, that things are moving forward, and we're excited that as we roll into Sunset that we are very well prepared and our ducks are lining up so that we can show how really effective our board has been these last few years. Also, we wanted to highlight that Dr. Paris is going to be heading up our expert examiner with the board, working close. He's got some time up there in the next couple of weeks to get that ball rolling. That's something we've been wanting to get implemented. We had a nice meeting the other day with Bill Morgan from ACC, and that proved to be very fruitful and informative for myself, Dr. Paris, and Ms. Walker, relative to aspects of CE around the nation, as well as the pending changes with the licensing committee will be hitting on today as a big part of our meeting today. So we'll let Dr. Daniels introduce those and show what she's been able to accomplish, which has been nothing short of miraculous these last few months in getting prepared for this meeting today. At the end of this month, Ms. Walker and I will be attending the Cal Cairo event, where we'll be a part of a roundtable. I'll be attending the board meeting on Thursday, where I'll be giving a report and question and answer with Cal Cairo. So we're continuing to do our outreach, which is part of our strategic plan. And I think we've been doing a great job. Lots of members of the boards have had opportunity to outreach to our schools, to our stakeholders, which has proved to be, I think, opening understanding with lots of our licensees and others about what we're really trying to accomplish and do here at the board level. So that's my report, and I'll open it up for comments, or if there are no comments, we'll go straight to public comment. Thank you. Are there any comments from the board?
No comments from me. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? If not, we'll open it to public comment on agenda item 3. Thank you.
All right. We are open for public comment on the board chair's report. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few moments now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you, David. Okay, agenda item 4, we will welcome Ian Gallagher from the DCA's Division of Legislative Affairs, and he will provide us an update at this time. Welcome, Ian.
Hello. Hope everybody can hear me fine.
I can hear you.
Perfect. Well, hello. Good morning. My name is Ian Gallagher with the Department of Consumer Affairs, Legislative Affairs Division. Thank you for the opportunity to join you today. I'm going to be presenting 4 items for this DCA update. So the first one is the Governor's Reorganization Plan. In January, Governor Newsom released his proposed 2025-26 state budget, which included a proposal to split DCA's oversight agency, the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, into two state agencies, the California Housing and Homelessness Agency and the Business and Consumer Services Agency. After public hearings and review by the Little Hoover Commission and the legislature, I'm pleased to share that the governor's reorganization plan was enacted on July 5th. Again, the new Business and Consumer Services Agency will be responsible for consumer affairs, licensing, and enforcement, and the Department of Consumer Affairs would be among the 8 departments in this new agency. The 2 new agencies will officially become operative on July 1st, 2026. DCA is participating in multiple agency work groups on the logistics required to transition to the new agency and will continue to keep board and bureau leadership apprised throughout the year ahead. Second item to discuss is the hybrid telework transition. On March 3rd, 2025, Governor Newsom issued an executive order requiring all state agencies and departments to update their hybrid telework policies for employees and increase from 2 to 4 days in office per week beginning on July 1st, 2025. At the end of June, agreements with several labor unions representing employees within the Department of Consumer Affairs were released, delaying the 4-day in-office requirement by 1 year for most employees. We appreciate staff's flexibility as the situation evolved. The third item to discuss is the travel updates. On June 9th, 2025, the Department of Finance issued guidance for out-of-state travel in the upcoming fiscal year. Travel outside of California will be limited to essential travel that is required to conduct state business, meaning requests should only be made for mission-critical needs. DCA distributed a memo to all boards and bureaus on June 16, 2025, detailing the criteria for mission-critical travel, including but not limited to enforcement actions, revenue collection, statutory requirements, auditing, and litigation. Additionally, all requests must be provided to DCA Budget Office 8 weeks in advance to allow for review by DCA, agency, and the governor's office. If there are any questions, please contact your assigned budget analyst at DCA. We would also like to remind board members and staff of our collective responsibility to always work to minimize the cost to the state through responsible travel planning and scheduling. To best serve the public, it is incumbent upon all of us to ensure that we are being fiscally prudent in our decisions, especially when traveling for board business. DCA is reminding members and staff to evaluate if a rental car is always necessary versus ride-sharing options. Carpooling is also highly encouraged when renting vehicles. We know that there may be new travel costs board members are experiencing as well, such as baggage charges, so please keep receipts to ensure that you are being reimbursed. If you have any questions, please reach out to memberrelations@dca.ca.gov so we may assist you. Finally is the annual report. The annual report is one of DCA's biggest projects. Staff work on this report throughout the year, gathering information and statistical data in order to compile a comprehensive report about the department's actions to submit to the legislature. On behalf of the director, thank you to the board staff for your efforts and contributions. Published to the DCA website this summer, the annual report has a wealth of information and memorializes all the great work done by so many throughout the department. DCA encourages board members to take time to review it and use it as a resource. And that's all I have. Thank you all so much. If you have any questions, I don't know how many I could answer, but I'm more than happy to take them back and get you an answer at a later date.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
No, thank you, Ian, for the update.
This meeting is being recorded and summarized.
Okay. I somehow was able to join as a guest.
This is the moderator, Dr. Adams. You're still with us.
I think Dr. Adams added from his computer as well. It looks like he's also in the attendee list.
All right, Dr. Adams, we have you on the list twice. Be careful when unmuting one that the microphones are not too close, otherwise we will get an echo. You should be able to unmute either device at will. Dr. Adams, I see that you've unmuted your your desktop computer.
Okay, so am I on computer now? Does everybody see me?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so I shut off my phone. All right. I so apologize for this. I just wanted to try to get onto the actual site. I kept trying. So anyway, thank you, Ian, again for your report. Did we get a chance to open for public comment? I apologize.
Not yet.
Okay, so David, if we could open for public comment on agenda item 4, that'd be great.
Absolutely. We are open for public comment on agenda item 4. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. Okay, agenda item 5. Again, this is, I know, been a heavy lift, and we're so grateful to have this accomplished. So this is the review and possible approval of our board meeting minutes going back quite a while. So I'll open it for comment on the board, or I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I didn't have any question on the notes, but Dr. Adams, I did have a question for Sabina, because not all the current members
Right.
were in all the meetings, and the recent BMOT training said that if we weren't in a meeting that we should abstain. So I was just looking to Sabina for some clarification on how to handle these meeting minutes.
Yes, so usually I let everybody know that, remember, you're approving this as a record of the meeting. So it's okay to vote if you weren't there, as you reviewed it. If you're going to approve it as a record of the meeting, that's okay. Obviously, if you prefer not to, you can abstain, but you aren't, as a person who was not there, you aren't saying, oh, that's exactly what happened. You're approving this as the record.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
This is Sabina again. I know there's a lot of dates for these minutes. So if there's going to be a big motion, make sure we have every date in the motion. I know there's a lot, but we need to make sure we have every date in there.
Thank you.
And it can be a one single motion for all of them?
Correct. You can just say, I move to approve the, and just read the screen. Or I can.
In that case, I move to approve the board meeting minutes from July 20th, 2023, October 19th, 20th, 2023, January 12th, 2024, May 23rd, 24th, 2024, October 24th, 2024, February 13th, 2025, and the April 17th and 18th, 2025 board meetings.
I second.
All right. I believe we need to open it up. Is there any other comments? All right, we'll open it up to public comment.
We are open for public comment on the motion for the board meeting minutes. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes. Ms. Cruz, would you take the roll, please? Thank you.
Yes. Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Dr. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz, yes. Dr. Azalino,
Abstain.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. All right, we will move to agenda item 6. Review and possible ratification of approved doctors of chiropractic license applications.
I'll make a motion
Questions or
to,
comments or thank you.
sorry.
Nope, thank you. I'll entertain a
Yes.
motion. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to ratify the attached list of approved license applications.
I'll second it.
Any comments? All right, let's open for public comment.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 6. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3. And as a reminder to our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you, David. Ms. Cruz, if there's no other comments, please call the roll.
All right. Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Dr. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz, yes. Dr. Azalino,
Yes.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, review and possible ratification of approved continuing education provider applications. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the following CE provider applications.
I'll second.
Any comments from the board regarding any of the continuing education provider applications? Hearing none, if we can open for public comment.
We are open for public comment on the motion for agenda item 7. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Cruz, would you call the roll, please, for agenda item 7?
Yes. Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Dr. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz, yes. Dr. Azalino,
Yes.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. All right, we're at agenda item 8. We want to welcome the OPES Chief Amy Welsh Gandy for her presentation on the board relative to the National Examination Review and State Examination Development process. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Is the presentation going to be on the screen?
Give me
Ms.
one
Walker,
moment. It
oh,
looks like it wasn't uploaded. Give me just 1 second to get that in there.
Okay. And we also have Ganesh Kumar, and I'm not sure if he's been made a presenter yet.
This is the moderator. I've gotten Ganesh Kumar. He's part
Great.
of the panel now.
Welcome, Ganesh. And it looks like your presentation's there.
Great. All right. Well, good morning. I'm Amy Welch-Gandy, and with me is Ganesh Kumar, and we are from the Office of Professional Examination Services, or OPES, and sometimes called OPES. Next slide, please. We are happy to be here to give you an overview of OPES and some high-level details about the 2024 occupational analysis process, the National Examination Review process with results of our review of the NBCE examination program, as well as the California Chiropractic Law examination, and the development that we do on an ongoing basis for that examination. Next slide, please. OPES currently works with 24 of DCA's boards, bureaus, and committees through interagency contracts. We develop California-specific licensing examinations, and we evaluate national examinations used for licensure in California. We also provide consulting to all DCA programs on examination-related issues or questions they may have, and this service is provided through pro rata funds. DCA has 10 test specialists who are educated and trained in licensure examination development and validation, and we make recommendations based on law, DCA policy, professional guidelines, and technical standards. Ganesh is your test specialist working on your programs, and you'll be hearing from him in a bit during this presentation. Next slide, please. Business and Professions Code Section 139 was created in 1999 and applies to all DCA boards and bureaus. Business and Professions Code 139 was developed to help ensure that all licensure examinations used by DCA are psychometrically sound, job-related, and legally defensible. They must be based on current occupational analysis of the profession, and they must meet technical standards for validity. Business and Professions Code 139 requires that boards submit to DCA an annual report indicating the date of their most recent occupational analysis and other information about their licensure examinations. OPES compiles this information for DCA and submits it to the legislature. Business and Professions Code Section 139 also mandates that all national examinations be reviewed in accordance with policy guidelines set by OPES. Next slide, please. So these are the policy guidelines developed by OPES to help boards and bureaus implement Business and Professions Code 139 mandate, which is an ongoing process. First, OPES has developed a specific licensure examination validation policy for DCA, and this policy is updated as industry standards evolve. OPES has also developed these other policies and department memorandums that provide a structure for the examination development and evaluation work that we do. OPES policy specifies that the standards for educational and psychological testing are the technical standards to be followed when evaluating licensure examination programs. We refer to them as the standards. These standards are universally accepted by testing professionals. Next slide, please. The standards were specifically designed to help ensure that examinations are fair, valid, and reasonable. Taking a look at the big picture, the purpose of licensing and DCA's mission is to protect the public. And the purpose of licensure examinations is to identify those practitioners who can practice safely and competently and those who cannot. Licensure examinations must be developed to provide a valid and reliable method for doing this. And to be fair, when we are making decisions about who is legally allowed to practice, we must focus on entry-level tasks and knowledge important for public protection. When licensure examinations are developed, it is critical that the examination protect consumers while not limiting access to occupations. It is a balance between these two goals. We find that balance by ensuring that examinations focus on entry-level tasks and knowledge critical for public protection. Subject matter experts, or SMEs, are licensees who are currently practicing and in good standing with the board. SMEs must be involved in all phases of licensure examination development. I'm going to now turn it over to Ganesh, who will talk about the examination development cycle.
Okay,
Next slide, please.
All right, good morning, everybody. For all the board members and the board staff, I'm Ganesh. I work on the exams for chiropractic. The first step in developing a valid and reliable examination is to develop a detailed description of the content domains to be measured. We do this by conducting an occupation analysis. It is also called a job analysis or a practice analysis. The occupational analysis is a study of a profession designed to identify the important tasks that new licensees must be able to perform safely and competently at the time of licensure, and the essential knowledge required to perform those tasks effectively. The occupation analysis is the first step in what we call the cycle of examination development. The results of the occupation analysis includes a detailed description of practice, which is divided into content domains and an outline for developing the licensure examination. The next step is to work with SMEs to write and review test questions, also known as items, construct the examination, and determine the passing score. Okay, the next slide, please. As I mentioned before, SMEs are critical to the process and required by psychometric standards. And thanks to all the excellent SMEs from chiropractic profession, we are able to accomplish this huge task. And OPS will work with the board on how to select representative SMEs or who are practicing chiropractors. SMEs should reflect the profession in terms of specialty, type of practice, location, ethnicity, and gender. They should have a valid license and be in good standing as of the date when we are recruiting them. The right group of SMEs fall into two categories, which is ensure that all areas of practice are represented in that particular field, and includes individuals licensed 5 years or less to provide a focus on entry-level practice of that given profession. Next slide, please. The first step to develop a valid and reliable examination, whether at the national or state level, is to develop a detailed description of the content domains to be measured. We do this by conducting what is called an occupation analysis. It may also be called as a job analysis, practice analysis, as I explained earlier. The results of the occupation analysis provide a detailed description of practice that provides an outline for developing the licensure examination. As you know, professional practice is continuously evolving and changing due to new research, new technology, new methodology, new regulations. As a result, testing standards and guidelines require that occupation analysis be performed at regular intervals, typically every 5 years, to ensure examinations stay current with changes in the profession. Next slide, please. In conducting an occupation analysis, there are some basic steps in the OA process, which is the occupation analysis. The process requires involvement of SMEs with diverse practice background, as I explained earlier, work settings and experience level. The SMEs review draft task and knowledge statements, develop content areas, and identify demographic variables. A survey is then sent out to practitioners throughout the state to determine the frequency each task is conducted and how important each task and knowledge is to professional practice. Once results of the survey have been received and analyzed, Another group of SMEs reviews the survey results and determines the final examination outline, which specifies the weights assigned to different content areas. OPS successfully completed the California occupation analysis for the chiropractic profession in 2024. And again, thanks to the excellent SMEs and the excellent board staff who helped facilitate this whole process. And next slide, please. One key outcome of the OA is the specification of the weights for the various content areas of an examination. We call this the description of practice or an examination outline. For the chiropractor description of practice, the SMEs reviewed the breakdown of the content areas, weights using the task criticality values of the occupation analysis questionnaire results. Following this review, the SMEs had a focused discussion and applied their judgment to determine the final weights based on the relevant importance of each of the content areas to actual practice. The finalist weights are shown in the table of the left in the slide. Next, we ask the SMEs to review the data specific to this. Back up, yeah. Following this review, the SMEs had a focused discussion. Let me go. Next, we ask the SMEs to review the data specific to the task within the law content area. Using the same methodology, they established weights for the California chiropractic law examination outline. The updated examination outline will be implemented in examination form starting in September 2025, which is this year, and is presented in the table on the right on the same slide. I will now pass the mic back to Amy, who will talk more on the national exam review process.
Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about national examinations. Business and Professions Code Section 139, again, requires that all national examinations be reviewed in accordance with the OPES validation policy. The policy states that all licensure examinations appropriate for use in California professions regulated by DCA should be validated according to accepted technical and professional standards. California practice must be appropriately represented in an occupational analysis on a national level in order for the results to be valid for examination development in California. The suitability of examination content for California practice must be determined by a review of the occupational analysis, including the demographics of the practitioners within the profession. Next slide, please. So these are the three parts of the National Examination Review. First, we conduct a psychometric evaluation. Second, we conduct a workshop with subject matter experts to compare the national OA to the results of the California OA. OPES calls this a linkage study. Finally, we identify the extent to which the national examination and the California specific examination together assess the information that California doctors of chiropractic need to know to practice safely and competently. Next slide. As part of the psychometric evaluation, we review the following: the occupational analysis methodology, examination development procedures, how the passing score is set, how the examination is scored, what the passing rate is. We also review test administration and security procedures, information available to candidates, and ADA accommodations. Next slide, please. As a result of our review, OPES found that all 5 sections of the NBCE examination meet psychometric standards. OPES supports the board's continued use of the NBCE examination as part of licensure requirements in California. Additionally, OPES recommends that the board continue to require the California Chiropractic Law examination. Now I'll turn it back over to Ganesh to talk more about the CCLE or California Chiropractic Law examination development process that he manages.
Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, OPS develops the California Chiropractic Law Examination. This examination is part of the licensing process, and it must meet the same requirements as the national examination. The CCLE examination is designed to measure whether candidates are able to apply the California law required for safe and effective practice. Next slide, please. For the development of the CCLE exam, OPS applies the same standards and guidelines that are used in the development of the national exam, which is the NBC. Starting with item writing, our excellent SMEs review the examination outline that is based on the OA we discussed earlier. The examination outline serves as a blueprint for examination development, and it used throughout the entire examination development process. During item writing, SMEs are trained in how to develop items for a licensing exam, which means to writing items. Each item that is written is linked to a specific task and a specific knowledge statement from the examination outline. By doing this, we create a direct link between the content of the examination and the competencies required for practice, creating content validity of that examination. Next, the newly written items are reviewed by a separate group subject matter experts, which are SMEs, who evaluate the items to ensure they are accurate and that the items are in the best shape possible before they go on an examination. There is also a second component to the exam review process, that is, new items are pre-tested. During pre-test, items are put on an examination form, but they are not scored. Candidates do not know which items are pre-test, and it allows us to gather statistical information about how an item performs. Items must meet specific performance criteria in order to be included in the bank of usable, which is basically a scoreable items. If they don't meet this criteria, they're taken back for review, which will include the SMEs, our excellent editors in our office. The whole process is repeated until the item does meet that criteria. Only after items make it through the review and pre-test process are they included in the bank of items that are used to construct examination forms. During examination construction, the exam outline is used to specify how many items are included according to the weights of the different content areas. After an examination is constructed, it then goes through the process of setting a passing score. OPS recommends that boards use a criterion referenced passing score methodology. The CCLE currently uses the modified Angoff method for passing score, setting the that meets this recommendation. Following this passing score workshop, which will again involve SMEs who will decide the passing score, the examination forms goes through a final review process that will also include board staff and our OPS management and editorial review. And then it is sent to the test mentor for administration. OPS monitors exams and candidates' performance as well as candidate comments that comes in for each exam, and I'll watch for any anomalies in the exam administration. And those candidate comments will again be reviewed by our the SMEs from the profession who come in for later workshops. Thank you. We can go to the next slide. Thank you all for your attention. We'd be happy to take any questions and answers regarding this presentation.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Ganesh. Any questions or comments from the board?
I don't really have a question. Thank you for the presentation. I was noticing on page 11 that the recommendation to be fully compliant with policy OPES 2001 was to remove non-faculty or board members and faculty from the SMEs. So I'm not really sure. I sort of have a question if we're going to be addressing that. So I'm not really sure who the question goes to. I don't think it's Amy and Ganesh, but thank you for the information.
You're welcome. I can answer that. Maybe we We have that policy, but we presented at a recent leadership meeting about that policy. It is in place to prevent conflict of interest, but we do understand that boards want to participate, and that makes sense often. And we just ask for transparency. And for NBCE, they only use for some certain parts board members and educators. And so we just, if you do participate, if board members participate, we just ask that you let us know that you're doing that for transparency.
Okay. I mean, is it better that for full compliance reasons that we, board members are not and educators are not participating? So it does represent that entry level, or is it sort of a non-issue?
That's the ideal from our perspective, but we understand that other national exam developers may not have that perspective. Often they feel that it's more prestigious to have board members and they want those board member states represented. So we don't want you to be left out of that process if other states are participating. So we just want to be made aware.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. Sergio Azzolino here. I do think there is some great value in having the board members at least have some oversight on some of the questions, or at least be privy to the test. So is it possible to just have us review the test? We're not directly examining any of the candidates, so I understand the conflicts and the perceived conflicts, but I don't believe, given that we're not directly examining anybody, that there is any harm in us understanding what is being asked of the individuals, because we may be able to offer some insight if the questions are not so relevant. Unfortunately, I don't know what the percentage of compliance was with the job analysis. Do we have that information?
Yep, I can share. You mean the percentage of people who took the survey?
Yes.
Oh yeah, okay, I have that information. So the survey was sent out to all chiropractors in California, thanks to the excellent decision that Christian Walker made, because normally that doesn't happen with every board, because they look at the cost and everything, but Christian said, no, let's send it to everyone. Okay, so that was an excellent decision she made. And it's not an easy task sending that to everyone. So that was around a total of 10,325 doctors of chiropractic of California received that questionnaire. Okay, that's what I call as an Himalayan task, which was achieved to the excellent coordination of the staff at the board and OPS. Out of that, it was also sent to 776 licensed chiropractors as an email, because 776 of them in 2024 had email addresses, which was sent to them. So in a total of 10,325, we received response back from 1,338 chiropractors, which is again a huge achievement, because normally that much response doesn't come for most surveys. But the professional dedication of the chiropractors made sure they answered it, and that is approximately 13.338% of them responded. And we used the survey results. Responded to be included in the survey was 12.58, because not everybody would have answered all the information we are looking for. So we finally choose a data set of 12.58%. But the response rate was huge, and it was a great decision sending it to each and every chiropractor received it.
Thank you.
I had a quick question. How many CMEs were used
for the whole process?
Yeah.
Okay, so it starts with the pre-survey. That was almost like 2 workshops, which had its own like 6 or 7 CMEs for each. And then we had the post-survey workshop, which was excellent because we had a lot of entry-level candidates, who were licensed within the past 5 or 6 years. And that was amazing. We had like 14 SMEs, excellent SMEs from all over California were being licensed. And that was a real great achievement. And after that, the other process starts, because after the survey, we had to reclassify the items. And that included another 6 or 7 SMEs on their own. And then we have to start formalizing the items and creating the exam items. And then we had to do a passing score. And that had a good in person, okay? That means they have to travel all the way. And we had a good 9 SMEs who participated, which is another great achievement, because it's very tough for them to make plans and come, especially because it goes on a Friday, Saturday. So they sacrifice their weekend on a Saturday to make sure we get it all right. So it was, in overall, if you calculate everything, what was it, like 14, so almost a good 25 to 30% in the whole SMEs in the whole process are involved.
Wow.
For
Okay.
any occupation analysis.
And how are the SMEs chosen? Are they volunteers or is there an outreach?
So yeah, we outreach it. So we coordinate with the with our board member staff who help facilitate it. So we email it to them. And if most of the SMEs, if they are new, they have a lot of questions regarding the workshop. So I answer it for them, because it's much easier for me to let them know what is this workshop about. Because if they're pretty new, they have no clue what is going to happen. And so we tell them all the information about the workshop. And then sometimes we get reference. So some SMEs say, I got another chiropractor who's willing to come. So that is how it's kind of word of mouth, outreach, emails. It's not an easy task, but thanks to our BCE staff and our excellent SMEs who are interested in attending, and their word of mouth, it gets the word around. Yep, this OA we had. It started with a low, but as we progressed, it picked up speed, and it was an excellent conclusion that we had for the passing score on the post-survey workshop. Yep.
Thank you. I have nothing further. Any other questions or comments from the board?
So how can we have a set of eyes on this? Can we release this test to the board members so that we could view this test?
No, we don't allow board members to review the test because of the conflict of interest. And there's a history of boards having access to exams in DCA and not kind of following guidelines that are set out. So the department has a policy that board members do not review the test. We have a lot of processes in place for the review. So we have all of those subject matter experts, and we have our internal review, and then the board reviews the exam as well.
So you're saying you have there's a history of board members not abiding by confidentiality and releasing the test to
Right.
licensees? I would hope
Right.
that those people
And
would
so
be removed immediately. I would think that there's so many matters of confidentiality that we deal with. The least of our concern would be releasing questions of a test that for licensure. But I understand your.
This is Sabina. Also, you want to think about how that confidentiality requirement protects everybody on both sides, right? It protects the board members. That way, you rely on the SMEs and the OPES to develop a great examination, and it's almost like those blind or double blind experiments, right? You don't know. You don't have, you can't be accused of anything. It protects both sides here.
If may I add some information, there are some sample items on the candidate handbook that will be added for the very first time for this exam. So if anybody wants to know what kind of questions are asked, they're free to check the candidate handbook once it goes live for the exam later this year, because we are adding sample items for the questions. So that will give an idea of what kind of questions we are asking. And we will try to update it for probably every couple of years for the exam. But this is the first time we are adding some sample items for the chiropractic exam. on the candidate handbook, so which is available for anybody to check. It's public knowledge, so anybody's free to check on it. And it also helps the candidates to get an idea what kind of questions are coming on, how it's worded and everything. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your insights and an update. Is there any other comments or questions from the board?
Yeah, hi. I would just like to note, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would just like to note that many years ago, when we were put under the DCA and we're no longer an independent board, there was a lot of concern in the profession about how that might work out. And I had the opportunity to participate in one of the first revisions of this test that we had done in a long time as an SME. And this was so needed for the profession. And so I want to emphasize and thank you again, because the evolution here to what this has become and where we're at now, I just think this is, I couldn't even put a percentage on how much better this test is and what we were offering, when we were an independent board prior to DCA coming in and being able to use, resources like your office to improve, the quality of this test and I think, improve chiropractic for, all of our patients and stakeholders in California. So I just want to note that, since we're on a public call, that this has evolved a long way. And so thank you.
Also, if may I add one more point to it, this exam would have a separate professional boundary sub-area section, which was not part of the exam before, which, as you know, professional boundaries is a huge issue with any licensing that it deals with health-related licenses. So it has a separate subsection on professional boundaries. So once the exam goes live, you can see the whole exam plan. And actually, the occupation analysis report is available on the board's website that anybody can review, which will explain each task and knowledge statements for the professional boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you. I just a final comment for myself. I had the opportunity not too long ago in teaching a continuing education course that I got some feedback from a chiropractor that was coming to the state of California that had practiced in another state and was required to take the jurisprudence test, and they had some feedback that was not too favorable to the questions and the information that was available in preparation for the test. So I would like to give that feedback. I understand the importance to have that kind of that iron curtain between, board members and seeing the actual test itself. But I do think it would be helpful for us if there is a revision of the test, perhaps, we could see one of the older tests and see the questioning. Having not seen the test or taken the test, when I took my board, it was included, so we didn't have the jurisprudence test like we have now. I'm just giving that feedback because that's someone that was coming from out of state to our state, taking that test. And there was a great deal of frustration on their part. They were a 4.0 student, had been in practice for a few years, and then were taking our test to enter our state. So I guess, that's a one person's opinion, but I think it's worth looking at that. I for one would like to, to have a little bit of participation, or to see and to maybe give some input without breaching that confidentiality or that iron curtain that we put in place for conflict of interest. I still think we can be a part of it and give input and give insight based on our experience. We have a lot of experience on this board of individuals that have taken high level postdoctorate courses that have participated in those ANGOFs and those psychometric evaluations. So we have I think, some good experience and insights that could be favorable and give a little bit of a feedback there. So if there's somehow that we can do that or be a part of that in a way that doesn't violate that conflict of interest, I'd be interested in discussions and open to that. And that's all I have. If there's any other comments or questions, if not, we thank you, Amanda and Anesh. And if nothing, I will open it for public comment on agenda item 8.
All right, we are open for public comment on agenda item 8. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We had a hand up earlier and it's gone down, so let's see if it comes back up. We're going to give just a few more seconds. Seeing no requests for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. Again, thank you for the information, and we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
All day. Oh, I apologize, Amy and Ganesh. If I made the wrong
That's
comment, I
okay.
apologize. All right.
No worries.
We'll move to Executive Officer's Report. Ms. Walker, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm just going to cover a few items this morning, starting with our next board meeting. Just wanted to announce for the board members, and then we'll follow up with an email. Our next board meeting is going to be on Thursday, October 9th, and we're planning to have that meeting down in Whittier at the Southern California University of Health Sciences. We only have 2 petitioners that need to be heard during that meeting, so we are cutting it down to a one-day meeting and eliminating that Friday date. So your calendar is now free on that Friday. Staff will be in touch next week to start laying the groundwork on getting your travel arrangements made for attending that meeting. And then we're also working to finalize the petition materials and likely get those out probably in about 2 weeks to you, so you can begin reviewing those ahead of the meeting. At this point, staff is still finalizing our annual report statistics, and when those are ready, we will share that information with the board. A few of the initial highlights as we're working through our annual report statistics is an observed slight increase in the number of DC licenses that were issued and renewed during 24-25 compared to the prior fiscal year. So we had been historically trending down. We have a very minor uptick, but it's worth reporting because it did go back up. We've also got an increase in satellites issued and renewed. The level of our corporation certificates has remained steady. And then on the enforcement side, we actually have a pretty significant reduction in the number of pending cases in the enforcement unit as of the end of last fiscal year. A few years ago, we were hovering in the 500s. We reduced that down to 331 at the end of the prior fiscal year, and then we closed out June 30th in the low 200s. So a lot of progress being made as we increase capacity and enforcement. And we really have set a goal of trying to get that number under 200 as we start heading in towards the end of the calendar year. Wanted to highlight, I have quite a few staffing updates to make, and I'm really excited about all of those announcements. We've been pretty busy over late spring and into the summer with our hiring. Starting with Amanda Oppo she recently assumed a new role as our lead licensing and CE analyst. That position became effective June 2nd. We then hired Becky Like as our new lead enforcement analyst, and then Shelly Anderson as a licensing technician. Both of them started with us on June 16th. We recently had Jose Diaz. He was selected as our administration and licensing manager position, replacing Dixie Van Allen, who previously worked for the board. And Jose started with us on July 14th. I've also got 2 new announcements to make as well when it comes to hiring. We've now secured an offer for Rashida Brooks to join us starting on August 11th as an enforcement analyst at the AGPA level. And then we're also going to be promoting enforcement technician Susan Glover-Smith into and enforcement analyst position at the SSA level in August. So a lot of new faces coming to BCE. We're very excited about that. We've basically got now 2 recruitments left. The first of which is filling our lead administrative and policy analyst position to support the board, the Government Public Affairs Committee, and assisting Jose in with the projects with his unit. And then we also now have to refill the enforcement technician position that Susan will be vacating. So a lot of good news on the hiring front, a lot of new faces at the board. We're of course excited to have them all with us. And we've got 2 of them. Well, Amanda's on the call, but you've all met her. But I did want to take a brief moment for both Becky and Jose to take a chance to introduce themselves to you, because you will be working with them quite frequently. So I'll go ahead and start with Becky, and then after Becky, if Jose, if you want to jump on as well and say hello to the board.
Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Walker, and thank you, board members, for allowing me to join the meeting today. My name is Becky Like. As Ms. Walker noted, I have been with the board for about 6 weeks as the lead enforcement analyst. Prior to that, I was with the Contractor State License Board for about 10 years, where I operated in the capacity of an enforcement analyst as well as a special investigator. Before that, I was working in the medical and pharmaceutical industries. So that has come in great handy when speaking to different medical topics in my new position. So again, thank you. I look forward to working with all of you, and have a great rest of your day.
Welcome. Welcome, and we look forward to gleaning from your experience. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jose Diaz. I am the new administration and licensing manager. So I've been here since July 14th, and prior to that, I was a human resources manager over at the Department of CDCR. I was over at CDCR, and then prior to that, I was over at the Department of Justice. I do have extensive knowledge when it comes to human resources. Also, prior to human resources, I was in law enforcement. So I was law enforcement officer for many, many years. Then also I did some policy work with a couple of nonprofits after I left law enforcement. Also, I have a degree I have an MBA degree, which I completed several years ago, which hoping I can use here to really help Ms. Walker with a lot of her visions. So I'm excited to be here and excited to see what I can do to really help expand the board and help the vision of the board.
Welcome. Glad to have you all.
All right, thank you, Becky and Jose. And I'll continue a bit with my report. So through all these hiring actions, one thing I'd like to underscore on that is, especially in response to public comments, we definitely hear you, and we are taking efforts at the staff level to increase staffing. By filling these positions, what we've essentially done is tripled our existing capacity for policy, legislative, and regulatory items. So we're pretty excited as we're heading into the fall, which is going to be a very busy time for us as we prepare for sunset, and then we need to address the regulatory packages that need to get through the process, and they need to get out for public comment. They need to be filed with OAL. Substantially increased capacity there so that we can wrap those up ahead of sunset review. I am happy to report that as far as legislation, 2025 is seeming to be a rather light year for us legislatively. The primary bill that affected us earlier this year was SB 687, which is now a 2-year bill on animal chiropractic. Following our meeting in April, I had a brief discussion with the bill sponsors about our estimated fiscal impact, and then also spoke with the Oklahoma board about some of their kind of what they're seeing as far as regulating animal chiropractic. In kind of response to those discussions and taking a look, we're pretty much at this point concluding that our initial implementation costs, they remain fixed. It's going to cost us a certain amount of money, whether we issue one certificate or thousands, but our estimates to our ongoing costs will likely decrease due to an estimated reduction in the number of certificate holders if this type of legislation was to pass. So we kind of had those discussions. Again, the bill then became a 2-year bill, so we'll re-engage discussions as we head into the fall. And the rest of the legislation we're going to go through very briefly in the next agenda item. As far as regulatory proposals, a bit of good news, not quite what I was hoping we could have announced here at the board meeting today, but we do have good news on our distance learning CE package. The package itself is done, drafted, and it's been approved by the DCA director. So our last remaining step is just to get the final agency approval on that package, and then we're going out to public comment on that item. So definite progress being made there. Unfortunately, we're not quite yet at that public notice and comment phase, but we are getting there very quickly. And there's no more loose ends that need to be wrapped up. We just need a signature from agency on our proposal. Like I said earlier, heading into sunset, we are looking at that list of pending concepts, regulatory proposals, and the goal is to get wherever possible anything that's in our concept and production phase moved into initial and final filings. Because when we're going into sunset, we've done our work at the staff level as far as and the board level of identifying the things we can fix through regulations, but we've got to start talking about legislative asks. So we'll wrap up the items on our end, and then we'll kind of open the door to start talking to the legislature about the additional tools that we need that are outside of our control, and we would need some sort of legislation on. The meeting materials include a number of the list of regulations. The actual number is closer to 23 because the running list that we've been putting in the memo doesn't yet include the virtual care and the reciprocity and temporary licensure concepts that are being explored by the licensing committee. So there's a bit of work there. There's a couple of those concepts that I've got some recommendations on, and I'll route those through the committee. But ideally, we'll try to wrap those conceptual regulations up as we head into the fall. And just also a very brief budget update. We've got our fund condition within the meeting materials. We're seeing, when it comes to revenue, we're seeing a pretty similar estimate of the revenue that we realized last year was the same 24-25 and 23-24. I believe it was in May, I met with the budget office to talk about the status of the repayment of our bar loan. Based on the significant cost savings that we had during the last fiscal year from staff vacancies and underspending certain areas of our budget, we explored a few models and basically had concluded that the board was going to make a $500,000 payment last fiscal year towards that outstanding bar loan, because that was the first payment we've made in a number of years. So we made that $500,000 payment last fiscal year. It's now bringing our outstanding balance to just a little bit under $1 million, about $948,000 and change. And the initial plan now with the remainder of that loan is, again, targeting $250,000 payments over the next 4 years, but taking a similar approach where each spring we'll assess the condition of our fund and we can adjust up and down as necessary so that we can get that fund repaid. The only other item I wanted to mention when it comes to the budget is you can see from the meeting materials and my announcement of all the new staff being hired, that's going to put a little bit of pressure on our fund. So we've kind of gotten to where we're at now and kept ourselves afloat by having to be strategic and keep some positions vacant. Obviously, we don't have the capacity to continue doing that, and we had to hire. So what we're going to be seeing in the next few fiscal years is rather than the significant reversions that we had in the past few years, you're going to start seeing less because we're going to have significantly higher personnel costs. The status of the fund condition that's in our meeting materials shows that structural imbalance, because you can see that our revenue collected is not keeping pace with our expenditures. You can see our months in reserve steadily declining over time. And then we've got the issue of, when we did the last fee increase, $6 million was supposed to be the magic number that if we brought in that much revenue, we would have not only enough to cover our costs, but then also be able to put money aside to rebuild the reserve and then also use money to pay down that bar loan. What we've observed is, unfortunately, as every organization and small business is well aware of, costs have been rapidly increasing over the past few years. And now one of the problems is that $6 million has become our floor of what we need just to meet our expenditure requirements. And that doesn't include putting money in the fund, and it doesn't include repaying the bar loan. So we'll get into it a little bit more when we get into sunset review, but that's one of the reasons behind just bringing it to your attention that we still have a structural imbalance, and we're going to need to bring that to the legislature with a few recommendations as we head into sunset. So that concludes my update. I'm happy to answer any questions from the board on anything that covers my report.
Thank you,
Kristen,
Ms. Walker.
oh,
Appreciate that.
sorry. I just wanted to say I'm so glad that we have staff, and so relieved. The amount of work that we've been trying to push through is with the staff that we've had is just unattainable. So it was very nice to meet most everybody when Dr. Adams and I went up on the 20th. So I just wanted to say from my side, looking forward to getting completion on a lot of the work that everyone's been doing over the last couple of years. So that's very exciting.
Thank you. I concur. It was wonderful to meet with you, and I'm glad that we're getting the resources and the human resources that we need to push this this monumental stuff that we've accomplished in the last few years over the finish line and get us ready to roll right into sunset. One quick question I had was, you'd mentioned the one item that we had go through that was signed to the DCA and is now an agency. Do we have a timeline on when that will go to public comment? Any kind of an idea?
I don't have it just yet, but I will keep the board members updated on it. And then as well as, we've got so much stakeholder input and kind of interest in it. So we'll send an update to stakeholders, letting them know the current status. And then when we do know that date, we will get it there. I don't want to commit to a date just yet because we don't, the package has been approved by the director. It needs to be transmitted to agency, which should be happening, if it hasn't happened just yet, it's happening very soon. But I don't want to, give a date that's, not going to end up being what they want. I mean, I understand the frustration and the issues with timelines. So I don't want to commit to a timeline that we can't necessarily meet for them. So, but I will get them an update.
Thank you for the feedback. Any other comments from the board on item 9? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to open it up for public comment. Thank you.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 9. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. One thing I should add is when we in the minutes that or the notes that we have for BC committee assignments, we do have one committee that wasn't put on the list, and that is the Chiropractic Specialty Committee that is being chaired by Dr. Daniels, and also on that committee is Dr. Azzolino. So they're leading the our Chiropractic Specialty Committee. Just wanted to make that note. Okay, agenda item 10. Possible action and legislative related to the board, the chiropractic profession, DCA, and other healing arts boards. Ms. Walker.
Thank you. My presentation of these items is going to be rather brief. So almost all of these bills were covered at the April meeting without substantial changes. So staff is monitoring the progression of AB 260, AB 489, SB 470, SB 641, and SB 861, which, like I said, the board had previously discussed, and they're substantially the same as the last discussion. We've got a recent amendment to AB 742 in July. The amendment would require the DCA boards to expedite rather than prioritize applicants who are descendants of American slaves if a process to certify descendants is implemented. That amendment simplifies the requirement because it provides clarity. all of the DCA programs already have existing mechanisms for expediting veterans, military spouses and partners, asylees, refugees, and special immigrant visa holders. So adding another qualifying category to that is very simple to do. There was more concerns with the bill in the prior version when it had the term prioritized because it wasn't clear what that meant. So very easy for us to implement if we have to. The other thing I wanted to continue to note is the board currently has no licensing backlogs. So even by adding an additional expedite category, if the person doesn't qualify, it's not going to affect their application in any way because there really is no line to cut at this point with our licensing processes, which I'm happy to report. Unfortunately, other DCA programs can't all report the same. So we're in a good position when it comes to that bill. And the last bill that I added that's new is SB 744. That bill, I believe, was originally about community colleges, but it was gutted and amended in June to provide a few provisions, but one of them is that for purposes of California law, accrediting agencies that were recognized by the U.S. Department of Education as of January 1st, 2025 will retain that recognition until January 20th of 2029, provided that the agency continues to operate in substantially the same manner as it did on January 1st of this year. So just a very brief legislative update. There's not too much as far as implementation of any of these bills. We're just monitoring the status and we'll update you at the next meeting, but just a brief overview there.
Thank you. Questions or comments for agenda item 10?
Kristen, on 742 with the change to expedite, does that reduce that budget cost that you sort of surmised of the, I think it was 25 grand to implement? Does that supplant that, or?
It does. With those amendments, it practically brings the cost to zero. So the board approved language to amend the initial licensure process. We're closely monitoring the status of that bill because we're going to proceed with the regulation. But if we get out to public comment and the bill passes, what the board's going to need to do is just issue modified text where we just insert, another line. Actually, you know what? No, because it has to. I apologize. That wasn't clear. We have to wait for the new bureau to establish the certification standards, and then we would just bring a regulatory proposal to the board for us to simply add like an additional line of text to it and then get it put through. So there would be a fiscal impact, but it would be very minor, and it's really just it'd be along the same lines of what we had to do for adding SkillBridge and adding all the other expedite categories.
And because we don't have a backlog, it wouldn't inadvertently slow down their licensing.
No, that's the benefit for our applicants. That's the concern that other programs have, is that if they already have a backlog and you start expediting, it's going to put people in the standard path further behind. At this point, when it comes to our licensure process, the delays are just in the receipt of the different pieces of information we need to move an applicant forward. It's not a delay in that someone can't get to their application. It's that we just need additional information. So happy to report that doesn't affect us in any way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, let's open agenda item 10 for public comment.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 10. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so we're hitting agenda item 11. This is where we're getting into some of the heavy lifting for this particular board meeting today. I'm hoping that we can move through quickly and not have to take a lunch. So what I'd like to do in light of that, because these next few items are kind of the meat of our meeting and may have some discussion. but I think we can get through them at least within the next couple hours and perhaps even finish early today. So what I'd like to suggest, if we take a quick 10-minute bio break, is that acceptable to you, Ms. Walker? And then come back and then just plow through if we can.
Yes, sounds good.
All right, thanks. Is there anybody there real quick before we start back?
Yes.
That's savvy with the background and how I can change my background. I know that that was something, and I had hoped to, that's why I wanted to get on early this morning, but then ended up not being able to
Dr.
get
Adams, you're giving me flashbacks of sitting here with your father about 10 years ago and your sister lurking in the background. And it was the only time in my life I heard your father say one bad word, and he wasn't muted.
on. Well, I'm trying not to bring back too much of a of a well, what
Apple
would
didn't
you
fall
call
too far from the
it?
tree, buddy.
A shocking moment. I don't want to shock you with mine.
Where's your sister when you need her?
Yeah. I'm just trying to comply with everybody else as
Just
best I can.
hit the three little dots that say change your virtual background, and then download the background that she sent, and then you can grab it.
I've been hitting the three little dots for the last few minutes trying to find it, and it's not there. So,
all right.
Dr. Adams, click
Yeah.
the arrow by start video. Do you
Okay.
see that? And then click change virtual background.
Oh, see, that's the thing right there. I'll do it to this blur thing. How's that?
That works.
And then at some point I'm going to have to get the DCA part, right?
Yeah, and you would just click the add button and then pull that image file from your computer.
And depending on your luck, you may not have an add button while in the meeting.
Well, I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to leave it where it is right now because that's a far cry than my wall. But I'll get some assistance on this. So, see, Sergio, I didn't drop any language that would shock you today. How about that? All right. I think we're getting close to 10:55.
Couple minutes to go.
We got a couple more minutes, so we'll let everybody take the full time so we can get refreshed and ready to push through to the end.
Dr. Adams, let me jump back on. Do you want me to take a roll?
Yeah, we'll take the roll call. You got it.
Okay.
Okay, I believe we have 10:55. Ms. Cruz, would you take the roll call?
Is Dr. Aslino back? Is Dr. Aslino back before I do?
Well, I think if we go ahead and take the roll call, if he's not there, we'll know that. I don't know. Can we scroll through to see?
It's okay. I'll go ahead and take it. So taking roll, Dr. Adams,
Present.
Dr. Daniels,
Present.
Ms. Cruz, present. Dr. Aslino,
Present.
Dr. Paris,
Present.
Mr. Sweet.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Well, we are now at agenda item 11. So we're going to have a review and discussion of possible action on the regulatory proposal to update the requirements for board approval of Doctor of Chiropractic degree programs. So I believe we're going to turn the time over to Miss Amanda Apo to introduce this item and go for it.
All right. Hi, board. I'm excited to be here as the lead licensing and CE analyst. Some of the CE providers on the meeting might remember me from when I was Amanda Campbell as the CE analyst before Saida. And I'm excited to be here back in the licensing unit. So I'll go ahead and get started. This regulatory proposal is aimed at updating the minimal educational requirements for licensure and specifying the process for board approval of chiropractic programs. In 2020, the board began this process and submitted proposed regulatory text to the Office of Administrative Law. However, that initial proposal was deemed too vague and was returned to the licensing committee for further development. Since then, Dr. Daniels has engaged in meaningful discussions with the Council on Chiropractic Education and chiropractic program representatives to develop a more contemporary and effective set of regulations. The CCE also recently concluded a comprehensive review and revision of its accreditation standards, which took effect in January 2025. These updated standards align with programmatic accreditation, reduce duplication, and incorporate essential elements of diversity, equity, and inclusion. They also introduced new measures for student success, cultural competency, and expand research and scholarship requirements. Our proposed regulatory changes aim to reflect those advancements and ensure that chiropractic education in California remains current and effective. Key updates to the regulations includes clarifying definitions of various organizations and educational terms, specifying the process for board approval of chiropractic programs, granting the board authority to inspect and obtain records from accreditors, updating educational and clinical competency requirements, including direct assessment programs and distance learning, establishing requirements for chiropractic preceptorship programs, including supervision, patient notification, and record keeping, repealing unnecessary duplicative or obsolete regulations. And then in the meeting materials, we do have a suggested motion with proposed text to initiate, to approve the proposed text and initiate the rulemaking process should the board wish to proceed with the proposal as drafted. And with that, I turn it back over to the board for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Also, I think on agenda item 11, Dr. Daniels has been a big part of this, so I would actually like to give her opportunity to weigh in or give some insights that might be helpful for us in what she's and the committee are requesting at this time. I know there's been a lot of heavy lifting, and I think we're ready to have the board do some action. So, Dr. Daniels.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Amanda. That was great. So as Amanda said, this has been around for a while, and the proposed, in 2020 wasn't going to pass because it was too vague, not supportive, and incomplete. And so what you have in front of you is the result of a lot of meetings with stakeholders and a lot of work on staff's part. And the goal was to reduce or eliminate most of the overly prescriptive administrative stuff that the schools currently have to do. And then to also try to contemporize the chiropractic education with more current language and focusing it more on competency based outcomes. So as you read through the text, you may see some different language that wasn't in there before. And we've worked as closely, I believe, as we can. Kristen and Amanda can correct me if I'm wrong, with legal to, as we've gone through this process, to try and avoid any holdups when we get there. So we've been working closely with them, seeing what we can change, what we can't change. I've talked to the several schools at length, the provost, vice provost, and the presidents. And what you have before you, I think, is a really good, at least initial step. This has not been touched in decades. And so it has been a big lift to get it this far. And what you have before you, I think, accomplishes a lot. Not to say that that is the final step, but the people that I have reached out to and have facilitated these conversations on the draft that you have before you are supportive and looking very forward to the relief that they'll get. And so there's a few items that aren't ideal, but the majority is that this will give the schools a lot of freedom to take their resources into the education and not into the administrative aspect. And then we try to clarify some of the educational requirements. We also removed most of the prescriptive numbers for, numbers of labs and stuff like that. So that's a shift from, time, butts in the seat type of model to more clock hours, competency-based education, et cetera. So what you're being asked today is, careful review of that text, and then please let us know if you have any questions. And there is a suggested motion there, and we think it looks really good. It's been a lot. It's been a lot of work, and again, it is not perfect, but I think it accomplishes a lot, at least for a first step. And then, if the act ever changes through the legislative process, I think it's a little more tidy and it's a little more contemporary than it was when we started. So with that, I'll leave it to Dr. Adams and the board.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, just again to echo, nothing short of miraculous. You really have done an amazing job, and I know I know having personally talked with you, the hours that you spent on this, and also hearing from Bill Morgan the other day, the discussions that you've had with him and many others. He's very, very impressed with the work that the committee has done. So having said that, I will open it to the board for any discussion. If there is no discussion, then I will entertain the motion that has been suggested as part of the record.
No discussion here, but thank you to Dr. Daniels and everybody else who's worked on this. It's long overdue, and if there's no discussion, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
This is Sabina. Your motion is in the documents on page 3 of your memo. The second paragraph there, it says suggested motion. All of that would have to be read into the record.
Dr. Aslino, would you care to read the suggested motion if that's how you feel?
Yes, if I could get to that suggested motion. Otherwise, I will ask if Sabina, if you could read it, and I'll say so moved. What page is this?
I'm happy to.
Yeah, go ahead, Sabina.
It's a very long one, so I don't mind.
Sabina, go. Yeah, Sabina, go
right.
ahead and do that, and then Dr. Aslino, you can chime in.
Wonderful. All right, so we move to approve the proposed regulatory text to amend and renumber as necessary California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Sections 330, 331.1, 331.2, 331.5, 331.12.1, 331.12.2, 331.12.3, 331.14, and 331.15, and to repeal sections 331.3, 331.4, 331.6, 331.7, 331.8, 331.9, 331.10, 331.11, 331.13, and 331.16 in the attachment. Direct staff to submit the text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business Consumers Services and Housing Agency for review, and if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for a hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulatory change as noticed. Phew.
Thank you.
Take a breath.
So moved. I would like to propose that motion as read by council.
I'll second that.
Any other comment?
I do. I had, sorry, I maybe should have come before the motion, but I think it's appropriate here. It's not, I have no concerns necessarily, but I did have some technical points that maybe things that can just be technical details or addressed or discussed later if needed. But mostly when I was looking at the groups, I was looking at anything that would maybe consider limiting language moving forward. So if we look at the groups in section, what is that in now? 331.5. Because I know that's something we've heard from our stakeholders. I mean, that's one of the impetus of this whole thing, is to remove anything that might be limiting language as we move into technology and educational progress. So starting with group 1, I noted that it says physical and virtual dissection or prosection, and I'm wondering if that language could be considered a mandate to provide physical dissection on, which is the trend is moving away from that. And so I don't know if that language should be more
So
like
Dr. Paris, the intent was to allow them to be able to be broadly specific so that they can do either or. And if you write it different, and maybe I don't think can we do and or? No, we can't do that. Anyways, it was, and I've passed this through the schools, and it was intended to be written in such a way that they can get the job done however they get it done. And I have had multiple conversations with the schools as far as moving away from actual cadavers. There's several schools that don't think that's the way to go. There's quite a bit of literature that's coming out that is not in favor of that, and that it's a supplemental or it's a combination. So the intent was to write it not to be prescriptive, but that it could be interpreted that they can get it done however they can get it done, and that it's based on their outcomes. And I know one school in particular had moved more to virtual, moved more to technology, and their anatomy board scores had dropped. So I know that they're watching it and looking at it.
Yeah, I think, Kristen, I see your hand up.
Just because I am looking at that language, and we've also got Stephen Vong, our regulatory counsel, on the line, so he can correct me if I'm wrong as well too. But you may have a point there, and we may want to consider the use of the word or instead of and, where it says physical and virtual observation. Maybe we just substitute that with the word or. It's my understanding when it comes to regulations, we cannot use the term and/or, but when you use or, it pretty much implies and or. So that sounds like that might be a potential, you've got the motion on the floor with the second, but just a minor edit, which we can make today and still move this along. If we were to change it to physical or virtual observation, physical or virtual dissection or prosection, modern techniques and technology should stay as is. Educational and clinical context should stay as is. So I think it's just the addition of 2 ors right there.
Yeah, that was the
those
point
fall
I
in the
was
category
making.
as non-sub. Oh, sorry. I was just saying, does that fall in the category as non-substantive, or should we do that right now?
I will defer to Stephen on this, but I believe it would be considered substantive because you're changing whether the requirement is or I think it would be considered substantive. So we may want to make that change here today, but I see him jumping on, so I'm gonna let him answer that question.
Yeah, it would be substantive. So we could also say physical or virtual or both. That's something that the Office of Administrative Law has accepted. That has kind of gotten rid of the and/or confusion that has caused clarity issues with Office of Administrative Law. So whatever the board's intent is, if it's to include, if you want to be the most flexible, then we should probably say physical or virtual or both.
And this is Sabina. You can amend your motion with just stating what sections you would like that little change in, and then so long as our first and second, our motion, Dr. Azavino, is fine with that amendment with the edits, then we can verify with our second that change is okay also.
Okay, so what I think would probably be best is, David, how many of these types of changes are you going to be discussing right now that would be considered to be substantive? Because it might be better for you to just go ahead and go through all those things. And yeah, and because if I don't want to have to stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, is that perhaps as you're bringing up some of the finer points, that then we can get input from our council, then we can, if Kristen, if you can make notes of those changes that would be considered substantive that we have to do, because I really think we should, do this now if this is going to be the case. And so
Yeah,
that way we can move forward with this.
yeah, that was my intent, just to maybe run through the
Okay.
kind of
So,
suggestions for edit. And I would rely on council to determine if they're substantive or non-substantive, but my hope is that they're mostly non-substantive and just suggestion, recommendation to consider.
if
So
I
can
can
I?
also just make a comment just real quick, is that we're going to go through some items here. So if there are things that you do want to bring up when I ask for comment before we move to a motion, please bring those up then, because then when we do make the motion, we can include those amendments in the motion as we go, instead of having to kind of somewhat backtrack. So
Well,
Yep.
maybe I jumped the gun on that one, Dr.
no,
Adams. That may
no,
be
no,
my fault, but
We,
I'm going to withdraw the
no.
motion. How about we do that? I'll withdraw the motion and then we'll move forward from there.
I don't think you need to at this point. I think Sabina said that we can have it stand with some of those amended things. So I think what's best for time and for continuity is, rather than stop and go, let's just let Dr. Paris comment on those things, and then we'll do it as we go at the end. Does that sound okay? Can we make those notes, Kristen, as we go, just to?
Yep, I'm ready and keeping track, and so is legal.
Okay, sounds good. So we've got the first one on 3315. Dr. Paris, you have the floor.
yeah, thank you. And just most of these are in the groups, and then one comment on the preceptor thing at the end. So I'll be brief, or as brief as I can be. And then starting with group 2, and then and kind of a suggestion into group 3 and some of the other groups. I'll just put those together. But I was looking at the language, and I thought that maybe we could reflect more standard major physiologic systems when we list those out. So for example, in group 2, when we just say like blood, lymph, circulars, I mean, we have a list there, but I was wondering if maybe if we used more standard, the major physiologic cell systems, cardiovascular system, respiratory system, renal system, reproductive system, when it comes to that language too, things that represent a more broad capture of the education in those areas, and actually more language that I think provides more shared definitions amongst healthcare, professions and maybe education. So that was, and then that kind of also in group 3, like suggestion to, sorry, I'm going back and forth to read some of this, but I think we could maybe make that language a little more aligned and shared with things that cover like the systems, which is like digestion, absorption, metabolism, language along those lines. So, and impact on health, growth, performance, things like that are kind of more patient centric. And just as a duly noted, I think group 5 really bolsters and it's synergistic with CPR language that we're also working on in another area. So, and again, group 6 also back to the major systems language as a consideration. I think it's just more broad. It improves consistency. It aligns with other healthcare education and professions. And again, same for group 7. Instead of just andrology and like a term like that, we're leaving out a lot when we say gynecology and andrology, as opposed to reproductive systems, hormone regulation, sexual development and maturation, things like that, that really cover the broad spectrum of even the learning that at DC we get. So all of that kind of seemed a little bit like limiting language. And then finally, for group 8, we note, let me see here. Yeah, we note psychiatry, and then list some of the aspects maybe underneath that. And I'm just wondering if maybe that shouldn't be less focused on naming kind of what is generally considered a healthcare specialty profession, psychiatry, and maybe more broad to include mental health disorders broadly, versus just naming a few. And I think that that opens up progressive practice parameters that colleges are teaching now, and that's kind of more current healthcare with cognitive behavioral therapy and interventions along those lines, behavioral interventions, et cetera. So I'm wondering if that language isn't better served somewhere along the line of mental health disorders, or if it's too substantive to if we have to keep psychiatry, that we leave that, but then include something a little more broad, like instead of naming all these disorders, we don't really know what the mental health disorder of the future may be. And so
yeah, I agree with you, Dr. Paris. I would say mental health disorders and psychiatric illnesses that are commonly seen.
Yeah, I think that provides flexibility and makes us more progressive, and I think the longevity of this language probably improves a little bit. And then the last thing, and thanks for bearing with me, Chair, appreciate the few minutes. The last thing I have, I think, is 331.6 now, and there's preceptor language, and I'm trying to find exactly where that is, but I'm wondering what the Dr. Daniels maybe did the rationale for the 5 years of practice.
Kristen, you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. The rationale for the 5 years of practice was based on evaluating the requirements that other states had. We looked at what was being done nationally, and I believe we also were looking at Palmer had some pretty robust guidelines in place, and actually SCU as well, for their preceptorship programs. And it was something that was already kind of set as the most common standard that was being used. So we used that as the standard.
So the only reason I think we might, and I understand kind of the consensus view there, but I think is that as the trend is to really put, students into field offices, essentially half the program now. I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing, limited, brick and mortar on-site education, or even limited clinical, and they're getting into their clinical rotations, I should say, much, much earlier. And I sense that there will be a very strong need, if there's not already, for more and more preceptors available to the colleges moving forward. And so my initial read of that was just that it seemed like limiting language. So that's why I was wondering what the rationale support is, which actually I may agree with that rationale just of experience, I guess, but I don't know that if that was data driven, or if there was anything that tells us that that's necessary, other than just everybody kind of thinks if you're 5 years in, you're a better clinician. But because it doesn't imply any training. And so I think if anything, if we looked at what's more important, 5 years in practice, or that the colleges build out some sort of training for preceptors so they can be qualified in education, or educating students in the preceptor program, that might be, or strengthen that language, if might be more valuable. And then I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to point out, yeah, so what we did was we took the standard of what was being pretty much done nationally to come up with the 5 years. The expectation on when it comes to training or the quality of the program that's being put into place as far as the preceptorships, we've actually covered all the way at the beginning of the text where we defined what the preceptorship is. We actually set a bar there that they're getting something to the effect of, I don't have it right in front of me, but a clinical component that's comparable to entry-level practice of chiropractic. So we did set a bar, we just put it in that section, not I think what you were, when you get down into the details of the preceptorship program, we've got it, let me just quickly scroll. We've got it at the very end of the definitions that a preceptorship means a comprehensive clinical experience program offered or sponsored by, thereby approved and vetted by the board approved chiropractic program that promotes and encourages a chiropractic student or graduate intern to gain professional applied practical hands-on experience comparable in all aspects to that of a competent, safe, and ethical entry-level DC in practice or other comparable health institution setting under the direct on-site supervision of a preceptor. So we cover ourselves using the definition and setting the expectation, and then we set bare minimum requirements of who would be eligible to be selected to be a preceptor. And the feedback and the input we were getting from the colleges was really they don't want more requirements on top of that with the preceptorship programs because they already have robust systems in place. So that was kind of where how we landed there, because right now we don't have anything. All we have is a little carve out in our regulation that says you can practice in a preceptorship. So that's how we got there, and it is covered. It's just in the definition.
I didn't get the sense in reading the definition that there's any influence on or requirement on the colleges actually training these preceptors. You know, I don't think, unless I missed that language. I mean, I read that, I hear the definition, I don't think implies that there's a need to, actually train the preceptors themselves. And I was just, in my mind, I was envisioning is 5 years of practice better than actually being trained. I would say probably better to have somebody that's trained and it's only been out a year, but understands how to teach and how to educate on some baseline level, and I think that's the obligation of the colleges, and I think that's public protection at the forefront. So anyway, that was my sense there, that, we're not influencing that with this language. But I also think from the college perspective, looking at that stakeholder group, that as they move forward and they need more people, the 5 years also could, cut the other way for them in limiting those. So I didn't sense the training language in there. I just sensed the eligibility language, which kind of two different things in my eyes. So just consideration here. And the final thing was, and I've run into this with actual students. This comes up actually a number of times. This had come up, and the for the payment portion of that language, I wasn't sure if that was meant to imply that the licensee shall pay, or if that's just should suggest that there is payment. And because I believe some schools pay that and other schools have the students pay that. And so I wasn't sure if we wanted to, again, maybe it's or language or just language that notes that a payment needs to be made regardless of who pays. My impression was that the payment language implies the licensee pays. That's all I got. So let me get off. Thank you, Chair Adams.
Sounds good.
I have a very brief comment. I do agree with Dr. Parrish in regards to standardizing our language across all healthcare specialties. If we are going to be, I didn't want to slow things down, but if we are going to be changing things for the future, I think it is important for us to strive to have universal language, because chiropractic has been classic in not doing so. And I do believe these things are written in many different regards, from medicine, osteopathy, nursing, and whatnot. So we should just adopt universal language so that things can be, concurrent with everybody else out there, or current with everybody else out there.
Thank you. Okay, so let's bring it full circle. What do we need to do to make some changes there based on the input that would allow this motion to go through?
Hi, this is Stephen Vaughn, the Rec Council. So we can we need to note the amendments, the specific amendments that the board wants, and then just amend the motion to say as amended, as previously stated, and that's it. So Dr. Paris, if you go through the exact page number of the reg text and what we propose amending instead.
Well, I think that, I mean, in my view, there's really too many, and there's some aspects of the language that could not be changed. And so I really think the conversation either needs to happen or really should have been happening when this was brought up several times as far as the specificity of the language in the table. Psychiatry, for example, is in the act. So that word is going to be very difficult, if at all, to change. And Ms. Walker can speak to that. And the list that was there was to give broadly specific items of what is included. It's not limited to that. And those lists actually come from the schools themselves. So, I'll let legal and Ms. Walker and the chair decide, but we were sort of instructed that some of the language in that table was going to be too challenging to change, and hence some of that language was staying the same, but I'll let Ms. Walker address that.
Yeah, that's correct. So what that table is doing is it's interpreting, I believe it's section 5 of the act. So there's certain things that we have to be consistent, and we also have to justify the rationale behind each of the changes. We did go through them. I'm hearing things that to me are doable. I'm hearing things that we may not be able to do. I do agree with Dr. Daniels that it's kind of a high, they're not specific to the point where I would feel comfortable with just like a motion where we just list them all out, just because of what we'd have to translate that into text. Because we kind of started the conversation with something very clear, like switching an and for an or, but then it kind of evolved into something I think that got much broader. So I'm kind of inclined to think if I can get the board's feedback on the proposal, and if we could just briefly run through the kind of the wish list of requests for what to revisit, maybe we can come up with something where we work through language and kind of concurrently start building our reg package, so that because I don't want to keep delaying this, but it sounds like there's some things that we may have to address with the text before we get the motion we need.
Well, part of my concern is in delaying is that it sounds like that all of this has been in consideration where there's been a lot of input from the schools, that the language that's there is something that all the schools are comfortable with, that it's been intentionally left broad in areas, that it's respected the act so that we're not violating the act. I think my inclination is to say it sounds like that it was more, just some changes in language, but that's not necessary per se, as it is more of a wish list. But I'm inclined to say that if that one substantive change that you brought up, that we move from and to an or on that one, and that all the other things, can be looked at and perhaps done, that are not necessarily substantive changes, but more just kind of adding some things that may give some color to what those particular groups have. I'd rather not kick this down another 2 months. So we have a motion. I think that we can do the amendment with the or, and then let the vote go. If it passes, then it passes. The work that Dr. Daniels and the committee have done the outreach that she's done, I think deserves to be considered here, that perhaps some of these other things are more of a wish list than they are things that are going to make a substantial difference in the grand scheme of things. But that's kind of my brief take on what we're discussing. So that would be my input, is that I think that when it comes to the anatomy, that's a big deal. That's a heavy lift, that's been addressed. And I think that's a good catch. So let's change that. And then I think the 5 years for the preceptor, there hasn't been training, whether that's something that the schools choose to want to do with their preceptors. I think that's kind of what it leaves, is that the schools have always ran the preceptor program. So I think this gives some very, very good direction, considering where we have been for the last 45, 50 years of the preceptor in California. We finally have something now that really defines pretty clearly what the preceptor is required to do and what the licensee is required to do.
And this is Sabina, if I can interject real quick. All great, and I always love this board's discussions. What you can also just keep in mind too is if any of this, when it eventually ends up being put into regulation, it ends up being an issue, or the board hears about it from schools or anybody else, you can always go back and do another reg package to clean it up. It's not set in stone forever. So just, you'll always have another bite at the apple type of thing too.
Yeah, thanks, Sabina. I mean, that's kind of what I started with. Like, this is not the end game, but we identified and defined the main problem for the schools was the overly prescriptive administrative stuff. That is what the schools are struggling with. And so simply removing that, they're very happy. And so when we got to the table, again, as Ms. Walker said, there's a lot of justification that needs to occur in order to start changing specific language. As I had the schools recently review this latest document, and they were 100% on board with kind of what we presented. And this iteration is from constant feedback from them, and we've added in their edits. So you guys have a decision to make. It's fine if it needs to go back and you want your complete wish list with the terminology that is more consistent, then we will take it back and redo the whole thing. And that's fine, because we are constrained with the act with language. So that's fine if that's what you guys want to do, or we move it forward with the one edit, and then the next board can take a look at it. But it's been, 40 plus years since this has been touched. And I do know the schools are in desperate need of getting rid of those prescriptive administrative stuff that is listed in our current regulations. So you can kind of pick and choose how you want to address that. Is it perfect? No. Is the language consistent with other health professions at this point? No. So you all need to decide kind of which way that you want to go. And I'm perfectly fine taking it back and shaking it down again. So Kristen, did you have any more background on kind of that process of getting this edited or worked on?
Well, we've vetted it quite a few times. It's gone through, and it's one of those things that the more input that we get, it's just a constant evolution of input. And we had kind of had a conversation with Dr. Daniels over the summer of, we could keep working this thing, constantly trying to improve it, or we could put it up, for the board to make a decision and get us into the regulation process. Sabina summarized it quite well, which is, you have another opportunity to address and make little cleanup edits. You can do it as a whole nother regulation package. And you also have the ability, when we go, it's not been so common with the ones that we've done so far with regulations because they've been rather simple. This one's more complex. You can go out to public comment on your 45-day public comment period on the proposal, get comments in response, and the board can take those comments into consideration and issue new text with a 15-day comment period, respond to those comments again, and that's another way you can get to new text. So the board, can make a decision one way or another. We can proceed forward with the text that we do have. I agree with Dr. Adams in the sense that if we do, we might as well make that one amendment, the simple substantive amendment here today. You could proceed with that. We can start the regulation process. And if the board decides that, you want to make those additional edits, we can do it at that time. Alternatively, we can take the text back and edit and bring you final text again in October. So staff level, we just need to know how you'd like to proceed with it, and we'll make it happen.
Any other comments? I'm inclined to make the one change, amendment to the motion on the table, and then move forward. I think we need to honor the work that's been done, and then we're 99% there, and I think there's been a lot of consideration with the schools, with a lot of individuals that have got this language to where it respects the act, so that we're not in violation there. I mean, I just think that we have to respect that work that's been done. So if there's no other comments, that's how I'd like to proceed. And Dr. Aslina, would you be willing to amend your motion with the change to the 3315, I believe it was, changing it from and to or with respect to the dissection issue?
Yes, I am.
This is Sabina real quick. Could I get the page number of the materials where that change is? I seem to have scrolled up and I went way too far. So it's
Dr. Paris, you have the page number for the...
Is it 16 of 28?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect. 16 of 28, section 331.5. And that's group 1, correct? And then we have a second, and is that second agree to the amended motion? Who was the second?
I can still second.
Yeah, okay, you agree with the amended motion to include the change in group 1 on page 16 out of 28 for section 331.5?
Yes, I do.
Perfect, thank you.
So we have a motion with one amendment to that one section. Is there any other comment before we go to public comment?
Yeah, I have one last comment. I would strongly recommend that we take the opportunity to align with standard, like language, and I feel like maybe we're missing an opportunity. My intent was, I know how disruptive this can be to finally kind of to get this stuff out at this time, but that said, I'm not hung up on it necessarily. I just think when there's an opportunity to improve this, the likelihood of us coming back and to infer that like the next board, I mean, that's how we got here. Previous board said the next board, and here we are, 20 years into, realizing that this change needed to be made. So I didn't intend for it to be disrupted with, or have it. I understand from our stakeholders, as we heard earlier, in all areas. I understand the regulatory process has been a long and winding road, but my hope was just that maybe could be non-substantive, some included language, in the case of the psychiatry example. You're realizing that needs to stay there, but can we then add language that still broadens it, further defines that? So thank you. Thanks for considering too, everyone.
I agree. I'm all for that. My only thing is that we've done this, and I like what Sabina said, and that is that some of those language things, as we have a little bit more time to digest it, could be considered non-substantive, that they could be added and they're not going to conflict with the act. And that's what I think is included in the motion, is that there are those things. And I think, Kristen's got those notes. And I think that those are things that we can revisit. And as was said, is that when it goes to public comment, if there are some things that we can add in there and then have 15 days, I think we can also clean it up and come from that angle as well, and still move this along.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with you for the most part there anyway. So, but I would have one last question then, Mr. Vong. Would the suggestion on the clarifying the preceptor payment? I'd have to go back. I don't want to take a lot of time going back. I got to filtering through my booklet here. Would that also be considered substantive, or would that also be an or change? And it's a minor edit, I think, but my impression when I read.
You might want to give him the page number that you're referring to, David, so that he can be right with you.
Yeah, it starts on page 21. 331.6 is the new number.
Yeah, though the specific paragraph you're referring to, because I'm trying to find it as well.
Yeah, I'm having to.
Is it 4? Pay the non-refundable preceptor obligation via $70 in the following accepted forms?
Yes. Yeah.
So about your concern, I don't think there's a concern about the school paying it as long as it's just under the licensee's name. Ms. Walker can correct me. However, I don't think the regulations necessarily limit as long as the fee is just paid.
Okay, sounds good. That answers my question. Thank you for that.
And if I could just add just a quick point of clarification as well. Mr. Vong is correct. And, we'll process it no matter who ends up paying it. It's just that the way it's worded is that payment is for the licensee. And the reason it's structured that way has to do with the way it's written in the statute. It authorizes us to implement a fee for the approval of a preceptor. So it could be a problem with language, and it could be a bigger discussion as part of sunset, but the reason it's framed that way and you're paying a fee for the eligibility of the licensee is because we have to be consistent with what the statute says. We can't charge per pairing. We're charging for the board's approval of the licensee to serve in that role. So that's where that comes from. I know in practice it gets a little bit different on who's actually paying it, but that's how it came to be, is we have to be consistent with our authority to process those applications.
Okay. Yeah, I was just reading it, considering it's B4. So I was reading the licensee may apply for, et cetera, a licensee shall, and then we go to number 4, and it's a licensee shall pay the non-refundable. So I've seen confusion there, and I've seen varieties of whether sometimes the colleges, the DCPs will pay that fee and get that done, and then sometimes they shift that to the students. So I was just hoping we might clarify that doesn't have to be the student, but okay, well, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I was just going to add just briefly that we will clarify that as far as the information that goes on our website and how we actually implement it. But for purposes of the language, we had to write it that way. And what it's basically doing is the equivalent of like a pre-check for the licensees. We're doing the minimum eligibility check that yes, they meet the board's requirements to be eligible for selection. And then there's more to come on how that actually gets done outside of the regulation that we can clarify and make sure that stakeholders are aware that how they can go about getting that approval. But this is for outlining the way it procedurally works.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. It's always good to have discussions and get our thoughts out there. Thank you. And again, thank you, Dr. Daniels, and your committee for all the heavy lifting you've done. I believe Ms. Cruz is on your committee with you, so we should probably give some kudos to Ms. Cruz as well, and to Kristen and the staff that have really backed you up on this. Having said that, if there's no other comments from the board on the motion or the amendment to the motion on agenda item 11, I'd like to go to public comment. David, if you would open public comment for agenda item 11, I'd appreciate it.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 11 and the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a second now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes. Ms. Cruz, would you call the roll, please, on agenda item 11?
All right, Dr. Adams. Dr. Adams?
Oh, yes, I'm a yes.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Sorry. Dr. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz? Yes. Dr. Pasolino?
Yes.
Dr. Paris?
Yes.
Mr. Sweet?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Well, let's move to agenda item 12. And that is review and discussion and possible action on regulatory proposal to clarify the process for renewing DC licenses, update the requirements for restoration of DC license and forfeiture, cancel status, and mandate basic life support certification as a condition for licensure in active status. And again, we'll refer this to Ms. Apo, and I'm sure that Dr. Daniels might have some input as well.
I can defer to you, Dr. Daniels, if you'd like to launch the introduction, or I can give a little bit of a blurb, whatever you would like me to do. Just let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just kind of give the brief summary and then I'll lean on you for the more specifics and the questions from the board. So this package has been around before, and the goal of this one was to sort of realign the relicensing, restoration, and then also including a mandate for BLS. And so what this package would do is would repeal the DC license renewal and forfeiture restoration forms that we currently have. And Amanda and Ms. Walker can explain why we want to do that. This would also clarify the definition of license and forfeiture and extend the period of time of expiration from 3 to 4 years. And also differentiate between the requirements for restoration of a license and forfeiture and then a canceled license. This would also add in the basic life support requirement. And currently, people can just restore their license without really any guardrails for their competency. And so you can see in your packet, they must have practiced in another state, have an active license, etc., or pass the MBCE Part 4 exam within 6 months of trying to reactivate their license. So there's a suggested motion, and then Amanda, you can go ahead and clarify any of those points.
Sure. So I think we had the question about why we're repealing the forms from the regulation, and that is because it makes it easier to make little non-substantive changes to the forms themselves, like when we have a change in governor or agency or something like that. Since the requirements are specified in the regulations itself, we can make those changes without having to go back through the regulatory process. So that's why we have that. And then yeah, I'm happy to help if the board has any questions, and Kristen can jump in too if I'm not entirely sure, since I'm still new.
Thank you, Dr. Daniels and Amanda. Ms. Walker, anything to add?
They both characterized the proposal quite well. And yeah, Amanda summarized it well. When it comes to forms, we've been strategically repealing forms that are in regulation and just putting the plain language requirements, understanding the fact that obviously it makes our text much longer, but it's also been helping staff with clarity because it really drives those conversations about what's truly required to get a license, to renew a license. It makes it much clearer, and it's actually easier for us in the long run. So that's the rationale behind there.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board on agenda item 12? So I'm hearing none. Does that mean that everybody's ready for us to entertain a motion and to second that without any substantive changes? All right. Perhaps what we should do is, like we did last time, since it's a long motion, we'll have our counsel Sabina read the motion, and then we can have someone so move that and then get a second. Sabina?
I'm happy to do that. I like to read long paragraphs.
Thank you. You do it so well. You do it so well.
I move to approve the proposed regulatory text for the California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Sections 370, 371, and 371.1 in the attachment. Direct staff to submit the text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review, and if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for a hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulation at CCR Title 16, Sections 370, 371, and 371.1 as noticed.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All right, David, if you would please open up for public comment, I would appreciate that.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 12 and the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users at dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, thank you.
All right, Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Dr. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz, yes, Dr. Azzolino,
Yes.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet,
Yes.
motion is passed.
Thank you. All right, we will move now to agenda item 13, review, discussion, and possible action on regulatory proposal to update the record keeping and retention requirements for chiropractic patient records. And one of our newest members of staff in the enforcement area, Ms. Becky Like, to introduce this agenda item. Welcome.
Thank you. Agenda item, record keeping and retention requirements. The discussion began in 2015, was readdressed in 2022, and much work was done in 2023 and 2024 by committee and staff to produce the proposed language you have today. The proposal amends Section 318 to modernize the board's record keeping and retention requirements for chiropractic patient records. The proposed amendments require contemporaneous and legible documentation that supports all diagnoses, services, and recommendations. They clarify what must be recorded during initial and subsequent visits and establish a minimum standard for complete patient files. The proposal also outlines requirements for providing patients and the board with advance notice prior to licensee's retirement, sale, or closure of a practice, and requires a documented plan for the record transfer in the event of incapacity or death. The board was asked to review the proposal and consider initiating the rulemaking process. If the board wishes to proceed with the proposal as drafted, staff recommends the board make the suggested motion in the packet.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Questions or comments from the board on agenda item 13?
Yes, I would like to make a comment. One thing that was discussed many years ago, and it seems to be still in here under 318, item 3M, where it says, I'm sorry, not M, 4G, where it says the full name and either the signature or initials of the treating doctor, chiropractic. Nowadays, everybody should be on electronic records, and the electronic records do not always provide a signature. Back when we first brought this up a decade ago, it was understood that a electronic signature would suffice. And so I just want to make sure we're not limiting ourselves with this language, suggesting that someone has to have a signature on there.
This is Sabina. I think that, I don't think that's limited, electronic or wet.
But if a note is created and our name is on there, unless someone can prove that it was hacked, I mean, I don't even think we need a electronic signature on there. Just the signature of when that note was created in our office should suffice, correct?
I think it goes to, I think in general, if the board accepts both types of signatures, is that correct, Kristen? For other documents?
Yes, we accept both.
Okay, but you're not needing a physical signature, correct? I know it's not wet, but I mean, even a physical signature, I think if the note is created and the doctor's name's on there, that should suffice.
Right. What we're used to seeing, and again, I'm not an expert in this area, that's why we've got the board, but we'll see the when there's electronic records, they'll have a statement to the effect of like, this record has been electronically signed by doctor, insert there. That would comply with this requirement because it's very broad. It's just some sort of form of signature. It doesn't have to be a wet signature, a image of your signature, or anything to that effect. It just has to be something that's broadly considered a signature, and that's again where legal can correct me if I'm phrasing that incorrectly, but the intent there is to be broad, just some sort of the full name so we know who actually signed the records, because those we see in enforcement, those signatures, you can't tell who that provider actually was, and then some form of basically acknowledging that it's your record.
Okay, excellent.
I think in the text it says the full name. Oh, okay, and it says and, so that gets back to that and or thing, because we're saying you have to have the full name and either the signature or initials of the treating doctor. So the question becomes, when you're saying signature, that may denote that it has to be like your unique signature or your initials, as opposed to just like our electronic records generate at the top, it'll say, you know, Lawrence J. Adams, DC, DACNB, but it's not a signature. It's just my name at the top of the record and then my records. And then, you know, periodically there'll be portions where my signature will come through. It's not all it's interesting how it's kind of a hit and miss with our EMR system, that it doesn't sign every single record. And I think that's more about the way that it's printed out. I think if it's printed out one page at a time, it does the signature. But if you print the whole records as a whole, then it puts a signature at the end, and there may be 10
Okay, but I think the bottom line is we should just have the name, full name of the doctor or the treating doctor, period. I think that should suffice.
I see your point.
If we're dealing with an electronic signature, anybody can cut and paste an electronic signature. So the burden should be on the doctor once again. We shouldn't make it so cumbersome that an electronic signature has to be put on each document. If your EMR is pumping things out and it just says your name, well, then that should suffice.
Just a point of clarification, if you're considering that edit is, so the existing regulation requires the doctor's signature on like the initial visit and then their initials on every subsequent visit. If we're moving to so the rationale behind requiring the name is the difficulty that we have in enforcement, where we get licensees that play games and won't take credit for we can't tell who performed the visit. We have fraud problems like that. So the rationale and the reasoning behind having the name and then some form of, to the extent of a signature, is your evidence of taking responsibility for that record. If we're going to we can take the signature out. That's no problem of the text and move forward today. I just need to have a very high level understanding of the rationale that we can use to justify why we would be removing the signature or initials from the existing requirement.
Sure, quite simply, if it's an electronic signature, anybody in an office can take that electronic signature and put it on any note. So the burden should be on the doctor. If I'm treating a particular patient, well, then all treatment needs to be provided by me or overseen by me. And so my name should be on those notes. But to suggest I have to go sign each and every individual note when an electronic statement has my name printed on there, I think that should suffice. It would be analogous to an email. Anybody could hack into my email and send off an email, but if it comes from my email and it has my name on there, and this has been tried, and we could ask counsel about this, it's considered that was an email sent by me. So when you get an individual case where a doctor's saying, oh, sorry, that wasn't me that performed it, well, who are they suggesting performed the treatment? Are they suggesting another doctor performed it? That's a question for you, Kristen.
That's what we see. So we'll have a practice where it's more so when obviously the ones that encounter us in enforcement programs, but they'll have multiple licensees in the office and who treated the patient, and there's no real clear indication of who it was. There's some form of illegible signature that nobody even recognizes who it is.
Then we should go after every doctor in that practice. And that'll solve that issue very quickly. And so this is where I just want to move more towards, let's not be burdensome to the individuals that are doing good practice. And if we have individuals that are bad characters, let's go after them. So if I was in my practice, if I said, oh, this is not my signature, it must be my associate, well, shame on me. And you should go after both of us then.
Sounds good. Yeah, I heard a rationale. So I'm set on my side, and I heard a proposed edit to then strike the words and signature. And then we could proceed from that proposed subsection A3M. And then did you have any others that you mentioned, or was it just that one?
I have one other rationale for you, and that is if we're looking for a signature and my system does not, because I don't want my wet signature, nor do I want a copy of my signature placed on things. Then if that is the case and someone goes and places that signature on their note after, now they've altered a record. So we're better off not leaving it time, date, and stamped from when that note was created. And as you know, with forensics, it's very easy to tell when that note was created and if it was altered. And so I have testified on cases where someone went in and then changed and said, oh, well, I was just putting my signature on there. And now every single note was created on the day that, those notes were due. So I think we're better off leaving it as is. But I'm open for discussion on that one.
Okay. So what exactly are we changing? I heard maybe that you gave rationale for a change and then you gave rationale for a not to change.
No,
I misunderstand?
same thing. I would suggest changing in 4G to just say the note should contain the full name of the treating doctor, full name or signature of the treating doctor.
Okay. Is that something that we can, discussion from the board about Dr. Azzolino's proposed amendment to item 13? Is there comments for, against, or concur, or I know that would be considered a substantive change according to our legal counsel from before that. When you go from an and to an or, that would be considered substantive.
This is Sabina. So we're still here. We can still make some adjustments to the language. We don't have a motion yet. And
Right.
Whatever the board would like to do with this particular subsection, we can incorporate that edit into the motion. And
Okay.
so whatever the board would like to do. Or
Right.
whomever would like to make a motion with that edit is okay too. Y'all don't have to agree ahead of time.
Well, I believe you did read the motion though, and I so moved it, didn't I? Or was that the last one? I can't remember now.
That was the last one.
That was the last
Okay.
one.
My mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, so item 13, we don't have a motion yet, but any comment then on the proposed change to 4G that Dr. Azzolino's put forward?
Well, how about if I just make a motion that I'd like to accept the,
Well, I actually had some other questions on other topics regarding this.
Okay.
So I just
All
didn't
right,
want
so-
him to make a motion. I didn't want to get that far of making
Yeah.
a motion when
Yeah,
just
I got you.
clarification.
So let's just have staff, keep track of the recommendations. So far, we have a proposed change to item 4G to change from the full name to the full name or either the full name or the signature of the treating doctor of chiropractic. So Dr. Daniels, you have the floor for suggestions that you have for item 13.
Well, they're not suggestions. I just wanted clarification under on page 1 of the 3B where it says pertinent patient history. The only thing that came to mind, I just was concerned about our enforcement issues and interpretation of that. Our language has kind of in the past allowed for people to navigate around definitions, with their defense lawyers and stuff. So I just had a question, is a pertinent patient history, strong enough, or is the licensee going to say, well, it wasn't pertinent, so I didn't do it? And then my other question was where it says patient's approximate height and weight, is that being reported by the doctor or is it being reported by the patient? And then my final one is on 4D, where it says periodic reexamination. There's no time frame, and there are some standards. So I was just wanting clarification on the rationale behind those 3 things, and that was it.
Okay. Okay, well, you're wanting clarification. So, I mean, I tend to agree with you on the term pertinent. I think we could keep it broad and say patient history. That would be a suggestion that I would have rather than saying pertinent, because I think.
I don't have a particular problem. I just kind of wanted, like, from the enforcement aspect, since we're doing this, is that strong enough to kind of deal with some of the enforcement issues that we've had? So I don't know if Kristen or Sabina can weigh in on that. And as far as the time frame, that being a lack of a time frame, is that what we want? Is that supporting our efforts with the enforcement that we've seen with the lack of documentation? So it was just really wanting to make sure that we shore up the problems that we've been having.
I can briefly respond to those and then turn it back over, obviously, to our licensee board members for further discussion on it. As far as under 3B, the term pertinent was added because actually one of the prior drafts of language just had patient history. The word pertinent was added to help narrow that down so that to give the doctor discretion on making that clinical decision on what's the appropriate level of the patient history to get on that initial visit. What that sets the stage for, it's the same thing we encounter with all of our enforcement programs. We have experts that, it says you have to have a pertinent history. The expert would opine whether, based on the specific clinical case, it was appropriate or not. Then you get the other side that wants to argue about it, and it just comes down to who's more credible. But that was the rationale behind that. That subsection, that 3D with the approximate height and weight, that language was left broadly discretionary so that the provider can make the appropriate determination. And again, the expert, could kind of weigh in if it was really relevant to a case and, the licensee didn't take appropriate action to get an accurate recording of it. But it was left broad intentionally. And then the last one, it was under 4D. Periodic reexamination is clinically indicated. Same approach where it's case specific, and then we would basically make the case that it should have been clinically indicated, it wasn't done. If there's a solid standard that could be implemented, you could remove as clinically indicated and just put it in there. Like sometimes we hear from experts on, so if they say something should be done every 30 days or every 90 days, or if there's a standard, you can certainly put that in there and make it more clear. But it was drafted that way so that it could be, you have a little bit more discretion over clinical cases to use your judgment on whether it's needed or not.
Okay, thank you.
Is that sufficient for you, Dr. Daniels, for this agenda item?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Is there any other comments or input? Hearing none, I would entertain the motion then that if there's no concern over the amendment, which I support, the change in 4G to reflect Dr. Azzolino's amendment.
Apologies for interrupting, but may I just, so we can clarify the record, we need to make the change in 2 places. So it's under subsection A 3M, and then again under sub 4G. So we've got that requirement in there twice. So it would be under 3M to change it to be the full name or signature of the doctor of chiropractic who examined the patient and developed the treatment plan. And then under that 4G, the full name or either the signature or initials of the treating doctor of chiropractic. So I just want to clarify it's in 2 spots, and we can fix it in both.
Dr. Azzolino, is that acceptable to you in those 2 areas?
Yes, it is. So moved.
Okay, so Sabina, how do we proceed with you reading the long
Yes.
motion to
Yes. So,
accept and those amendments as outlined?
right. So I'll read the motion and then we'll say what the amendment is right at the section number and with the amendment or at the very end, doesn't matter. And then somebody can say, so moved.
Thank you.
I enjoy. All right. So we have the motion to approve the proposed regulatory text for California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 318 in the attachment with the noted amendments to section A, but 3, sorry, I'm scrolling, M, big M, and 4, 8, sorry, A, 4, big G. Is that correct?
I believe it was AM and 4G.
Right, it's A3M and A4G.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. In the attachment, direct staff to submit the text to the Director of Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review, and if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for a hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulation at California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 318 as noticed.
So moved.
I'll second.
Dr. Daniel second. Thank you. Is there any other discussion or comment? David, if we can open this up for public comment, appreciate that.
We are open for public comment on the motion for agenda item 13. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Cruz?
All right. Dr. Adams,
Yes.
Dr. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz, yes. Dr. Azzolino,
Yes.
Dr. Paris,
Yes.
Mr. Sweet.
Yes.
Right. Motion passed.
Thank you. Agenda item 14. Review and discussion and possible action on regulatory proposal regarding disciplinary decisions involving sexual contact with a patient and required actions against registered sex offenders. Again, we'll give the time to Miss Becky Like.
Thank you again, Chair. Thank you again, Chair Adams. Agenda item 14 revisits a previously approved proposal to adopt section 384.1 and 384.2 of the board's regulations. These sections would establish mandatory license revocation in cases involving sexual contact with the patient or registration as a sex offender. This proposal stems from the board's commitment to patient protection. However, legal review identified a conflict with BPC section 493, which prohibits categorical discipline without considering rehabilitation. Other healing arts boards, such as the Med Board of California, already have this authority through statute, specifically under BPC sections 2232 and 2232.5. Staff recommends pursuing a similar legislative path during the 2026 sunset review. And that concludes my summary.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Questions or comments regarding agenda item 14?
I'd say I remembered this one when we first initially discussed it a year or so ago, but I appreciate kind of the clarification in what it does not apply to, specifically kind of misdemeanor in tier 1. So I appreciate that.
If there's no other questions or comments, I suggest that we take the board's recommendation as it stands there and to rescind the April 2023 motion to initiate the rulemaking process on this, and then direct the enforcement committee and staff to develop concepts as legislative proposal for inclusion in the board's 2026 sunset review. Do I understand your recommendations accurately?
Yes, this is Sabina. So basically it would say, in other words, never mind, we're going to take this one back and we're going to go and we're going to ask to put it through our sunset review process and add a statute instead. So all that same material will be there, but that's what we're asking that the board consider today to recommend. That's what we recommend.
If there's
so the motion would just go ahead.
I was just going to say, if there's no objections or comment, then I recommend that we do that. And
Great.
whatever
So
process we need to do that, do that.
So it'd be I move to rescind the April 20th, 2023 motion to initiate the rulemaking process to add CCR Title 16, Section 384.2, and instead direct the Enforcement Committee and staff to develop the concept as a legislative proposal for inclusion in the board's 2026 sunset review.
So moved.
I second.
Any other question or comment? David, can you please open agenda
Yes, indeed.
item? Yes, thank you.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 14 and the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes. Ms. Cruz?
Dr. Adams?
Yes.
Dr. Daniel?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz? Yes. Dr. Azulino?
Yes.
Dr. Paris?
Yes.
Mr. Sweet?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Cruz, I understand we're getting on to a time spot for you. Do you need us to replace you for you to be able to take care of your situation?
Nope, situation rectified. We're good.
Oh, well then, great. We'll continue.
Mhm.
All right. We'll now go to agenda item 15. Review, discussion, and possible action on regulatory proposal to update the board's disciplinary guidelines and model disciplinary orders, implement the uniform standards for substance abuse licensing, and specify the process for filing petitions for reinstatement of revoked or surrendered licenses, reduction of penalty and early termination probation, amend CCR Title 16, Section 384, add Section 385, and repeal Section 386. Ms. Walker?
Sure,
Thank you.
Thank you. This agenda item for us today, very brief update item. So when it comes to our regulatory proposals that staff and the committees have been developing, in each of our program areas, there's 3 very comprehensive proposals. We, of course, went through this effort with the continuing education regulations. We did something comparable when we were vetting all of our licensing and chiropractic program regulations. The last large package that's still remaining is our disciplinary guidelines updates, and then implementing the process for petitioners for reinstatement of a license or early termination of probation. The enforcement committee's done a lot of work on this. It's been basically turned over to staff for us to bring the final product up to the board. The reason for my update on the item today is just to make the board aware of a new staff recommendation on it, and then just a brief policy discussion either way, if there's acceptance there, or if it's like, nope, keep going on the path that you were already on. So what we've kind of included in here is just we've got that broad strategic plan objective for us to look through all of our regulations and vet them and kind of address anything that's obsolete or unclear. While we were going through that, we came upon Section 386, which has very brief language that requires any proposed decision or decision issued in accordance with the procedures set forth in Chapter 5 of the Government Code for our formal hearing process that contains any finding of fact that a licensee has a second separate conviction for fraud shall contain an order of revocation which shall not be stayed. Staff recommends that the board consider as part of our development of the disciplinary guidelines and this enforcement program, repealing this regulation for 2 reasons. One, this provision would be more appropriate in the disciplinary guidelines as the recommendation, rather than because the existing regulation itself removes the board from having any discretion in judgment issuing a decision. The board the committee and the board talked through this issue on our agenda item that just preceded this of the board needs to retain its discretion, not write regulations that limit any ability to do anything. And then the second reason behind that recommendation is within that regulation itself, the term fraud is not really defined, that fraud conviction. It's very broad. And then a lot of that regulation actually overlaps with statute that already mandates a 10-year revocation for a second insurance fraud conviction. So really just an update item, but just wanted to kind of bring that kind of new angle of that proposal to the board's attention. Of course, we'll bring the full proposal back through the enforcement committee before going to the full board in October. But just if there were any board kind of concerns with that initial recommendation, we kind of wanted to talk through them now at this meeting before we get to enforcement, or otherwise, you know, let it just be an update for the board.
Thank you. Comments or questions for Ms. Walker relative to agenda item 15? Hearing none, I'm in full support of the recommendation here and have it go back to the enforcement committee to make the proposed changes that you're suggesting. Mr. Sweet, do you have any concerns with that? As the enforcement chair?
I do not. No, happy to work on that.
Wonderful. All right. I think this was information only, so if there's no comments or questions, I'll go to public comment on agenda item 15. Did we need a motion, or is that just pushing it back to the enforcement committee, I thought, right?
This is Sabina. No motion needed. The staff and everybody will just continue working on it given the discussion today.
Great. Thank you. All right, David, if we can open from public comment, that'd be great.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 15. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes. Okay, we just went through the heavy lifting part. I think we're ready to hit the home run, to hit the final end of this. So if we could just take a quick 5-minute, is everybody okay with a 5-minute bio break? And then come back and we'll take it to the finish line. All right. How we doing? Looks like maybe we need a couple more minutes.
I believe Amanda and David are ready.
Okay. Well, we'll give everybody another 30 seconds. Do we have Dr. Azzolino back? He might be our only. Okay, Miss Cruz. Can you take the roll for us?
Yes. Dr. Adams,
Present.
Dr. Daniels,
Present.
Ms. Cruz, present. Dr. Azzolino, not yet present. On back, Dr. Paris,
Present.
Mr. Sweet,
Present.
and coming back to Dr. Azzolino, not yet present. We still do have a quorum.
I believe we have a quorum. Miss Walker, are you okay with us going to agenda item 16?
All good on my end, and Dr. Daniels has the report, so.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we have a quorum. Dr. Azzo, I'm sure will come on here any minute. So agenda item 16, Dr. Daniels, welcome again, and
Yeah,
share with
thanks.
us your report.
So I won't read the whole thing. You guys have, I know, have read it. But basically, we met, our last meeting was June 13th, and we started to address more the issue of reciprocity. Currently, reciprocity is very similar to initial licensing. So there's some substantial barriers there. And in our sunset review, we were asked to identify and define, if any, barriers to reciprocal reciprocity. So the committee has talked about it. One thing that is very, very rough as an idea to handle this is the question comes that we need to be in line with the curriculum for California, and not all the other states have the same curricular requirements. Some of them are such as dermatology, psychology, or psychiatry, and pharmacology and physical therapy. And so again, it's a very rough idea, and the committee's very open to other suggestions. We started playing with the idea of creating a new temporary licensure for reciprocal. So if another licensee has an active, valid, no enforcement issues from another state, and they want to come to California, but they're deficient in some of our curricular requirements, they could apply for a temporary license, which is similar to what we allow for the military. However, there would be a public notification of saying what areas they were deficient in. So it would be a license to practice in California with a notification to the public that they were deficient in certain areas, and that we have not even begun to work out the details of that, what that would look like, but giving a certain time frame for them to comply with the curricular requirements. And some of the ideas are some of those classes you can take online from an accredited institution, and we can define those so it makes it doable. They can do it on their own time, and it would be acceptable to meet California's requirements. So we're discussing that. We also started the conversation with artificial intelligence, and clearly everyone knows the benefits. There's also some negatives or some drawbacks that the board needs to consider. And largely those have to do with professional and ethical behavior, transparent, informed consent, just to name a few. And our conversation was more organized around not specific regulation of being prescriptive, because that's not what we want to do, but more in the conversation of maintaining the relationship between the doctor and the patient. So within that relationship, we have key domains such as informed consent, ethical behavior, professional behavior, standard of care, etc. And so we're just starting to have the conversation about, do we need to do anything? What do we need to do? How do we safeguard the patients with respect to AI? And I can go into more detail as far as some of the pitfalls with AI, some of what the literature is saying. If anybody wants that, I'm happy to do that. And then I have reached out to the schools talking about AI competency. The chiropractors really are going to need to have AI competency. And so I've been talking to the schools about what that looks like and what their approach is. And again, we sort of see the board's role as public protection and safety, and that has to do with standards of care. One of the issues is if AI generates, say, a treatment plan, who is responsible for that outcome? And as many of you know, people are not educated enough on all the algorithms that are used to generate AI technology, and they have inherent biases and some cultural aspects as well. I can answer more questions on that, but that's just the overview. We're also still working on the definition of a chiropractic practice, and we're trying to get that. And then we're also working on the definition of inactive licensees, and that's in the production phase, I believe. So we're trying to move that forward as well. So I think those were the highlights. Kristen, did I miss anything?
No, you summarized those quite well.
So this is just informational only. If there's any suggestions or questions, I'm happy to address those.
Questions, comments, or suggestions from the board for Dr. Daniels? Hearing none, David, can you open up for the public comment?
We are open for public comment on agenda item 16. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, you wish to continue?
Yes.
Actually, Dr. Adams, if I could, I just had sort of an ask of the board and then maybe feedback from Dr. Paris. So I do ask that the board sort of think about that option that we're kind of floating as far as how do we reduce the barriers to getting other licensees to the state while still staying in alignment with the curriculum. And so that temporary license with public notification is an option. But if the board members would, kind of start thinking about any options or suggestions, the committee would be very open to that. And then Dr. Paris, at least from the literature that I looked at, it's the VA already has mandated licensure reciprocity. And so that's, one option is just to say, okay, everyone it has reciprocal licensure here, but then we come into the problem of we have different scopes in different states in chiropractic, and different laws, and then different educational requirements. So the ask is, it is a little different than medical. They seem to, at least with the VA, they have, Congress has mandated reciprocal licensure. I don't know if that is an option for us to stay in line with our curriculum requirements and also our scope of practice. So anyways, it doesn't have to be today, but I do ask that the members who have experience in this start thinking about it and, giving some thoughts and suggestions and potential pitfalls, and so we can start to move it forward. I know that I and staff have looked into kind of Florida, New York, and Texas and what their requirements are and what that outline looks like. So we've started some background work on that, but with that said, I'll leave it to the board.
Yeah, thanks for that. We'll definitely put some thought into this and give some feedback. I would say the one nuance to how the VA handles that is, and it took them a long time took them a long time to get there to actually kind of settle in on this, is that generally it's accepted that the VA determines your scope and privileging, and kind of a condition of employment is simply being licensed in one of the states. And so even in certain areas of the VA, you might find DCs who have certain privileging that might vary a bit. But I think they're looking at a National Practice Act. I know it's being worked on for the VA, and that would kind of have one common scope for all the VA DCs. And part of the way they did that was to look at how many states allow for different aspects of privileging, whether that's, therapies to, acupuncture and, puncturing the skin, things like that. So currently, we have DCs practicing at the VA in California that may not have a California license, as you know, but their scope and privileging is still determined by the VA at the end of the day, and they refer to that as a supremacy clause. So the VA kind of is at the top end of that, and your license is just essentially a condition of employment. But yeah, so I will think on that for you. Thank you.
Excellent. Very interesting. I was not aware of that. So thank you. Any other comments on agenda item 16?
So actually, Dr. Paris, how do they navigate it? Say they have a California doctor that goes to a different state that doesn't have license to puncture in the state of California, so assumingly is not trained on that, they go to a different state. Does the VA allow for that? Or I guess I need a little more clarification on the specifics.
So I like in reference to DC's doing acupuncture. Is that the example?
Yes.
So previously, and I'll make this brief, but previously it was navigated by like, let's say the DC, I believe Arizona has the add-on certificate. You can get to your license that gives you acupuncture privileges. And so we would have DCs licensed in, say, Nevada, that they had an Arizona license and they had the add-on certificate. And that was the qualification and assurances that the VA would utilize to put that into their privileging. So there's privileging documents that kind of list out what DCs can and can't do, but they also determine the level of qualification to add that to your scope and privileging within the VA. So generally, so as of right now, as an example, there are DCs within VA facilities in California, the Federal Island VA facilities within California that are doing acupuncture. And the only license they may have might be California. And I know there are some who don't even have a California license and are doing both, but that may be from a state where it's allowable. So you see it all across the board. And the VA has determined their qualification based on whatever training metric the VA has put forward.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the VA is still requiring a certification or a level of training to puncture the skin. So they're still required to meet certain, in this case, like curriculum standards in order to have that privilege in the state.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, correct. I believe currently, and I'm not sure if it's allowable to do just the current like 100-hour programs or the 200-hour programs. And I don't believe right now that they require the MBCE test, the acupuncture test through MBCE, but they do require training, a level of training, and it can be healthcare system to healthcare system. So just as example, that Northern California might be like from Modesto up to my area, and Palo Alto has their own system. So, and those are determined a little bit more locally at times, or approved a little bit more locally at times. But I think we're going to see that all come together with the National Practice Act, and it'll be interesting to see when that happens, if acupuncture is actually included or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Can we open agenda item 16 for public comment?
We are open for public comment on agenda item 16 again. If you would like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes.
Dr. Adams,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure Ms. Cruz didn't have anything to add to the licensing report.
Nothing else to add.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, agenda item 17 is the Continuing Education Committee. We met on July 21st, had a nice conversation that day. We primarily discussed the three main things. We discussed the fees associated with continuing education and the need to make some adjustments there in relationship for long-term funding models for the board's 2025 fee study, and how we're going to relate that also to the sunset review. We also discussed the Federation of Chiropractic Licensing Boards relative to the PACE, because we've had a reduction in many of the courses that are being offered within California due to the fee increase. A lot of other states are not involving themselves in providing CEs in California. So we've had a reduction. And so we're entertaining the idea of we've discussed PACE in the past. We do accept PACE providers, but we've also retained control over vetting the programs and their content. So there's going to be some discussion. We're probably at our next board meeting. We're going to have a representative from PACE come and enlighten us on some of the updates. Dr. Paris and I attended the FCLB meeting a few years ago, actually 2 years ago in Boston. And some of the suggestions that we made back then that were our concerns as a board in California about content and about vetting of providers and reviewing content. It looks like they seem to have taken to heart and have updated and upgraded their oversight. So there could be a possibility of us including PACE going forward, but some more discussion needs to happen, and getting input from PACE would be helpful, and us be able to ask questions of them. We also concluded our discussion talking about CE outreach opportunities, and discussed AI as well as the trauma-informed care aspects. And that's pretty much it. We did a lot of heavy lifting in the last few years, so we're just that big package is making its way through. Video conferencing is on the cusp of being out to public comment, and then will become a regulation. So that's a positive thing. So we've done a lot. There's not we're more in concept aspect rather than real regulation changes. But there's some things that we need to move forward with, particularly relative to sunset about the fees. We had a good suggestion on some of those different changes that might be helpful for our providers in unburdening them of some of the costs and ways that we can help them in that way, so that we can start getting more people coming back into the state that are going to want to provide CE. So that's my report. Any questions or comments? Dr. Daniels was present, so if there's anything you might want to add or clarify that I did not summarize.
I think just the last part there that we had directed staff to start proposing a resource page for licensees of kind of best practices or regarding AI and items that aren't a regulatory package. So part of our sunset goal was to update the board's website and be more proactive with outreach to the licensees and getting information as far as I guess you could say standards of care or that sort of thing. So I just wanted to add that we did direct staff on that. So I believe that they're working on that.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or suggestions? Hearing none, if we can open agenda item 17 to public comment.
Agenda item 17 is now open for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. We are now at agenda item 18, Chiropractic Specialty Subcommittee Report. Dr. Daniels with Dr. Azzolino as well. The time is yours, Dr. Daniels.
Thank you. I'm happy to do it. Dr. Azzolino, do you want to give the report on our meeting last day?
I did not prepare anything, but I'm happy to just share that we met and we are going to reconvene shortly to discuss some different criteria. I think the crux of it is that there are multiple different specialty programs out there, and I think we want to model ours after the highest credentialing available. And we want to make sure all the different programs have appropriate accreditation. So there are some different boards out there that are familiar to most of the board members. The American Chiropractic Neurology Board is one. American Board of Chiropractic Radiology is another. There's many spurious boards that just have self-accreditation. And so we just want to make sure that in California, everything that we're doing is adhering to the highest standards. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Daniels. Feel free, let me know if there's any questions, but I think we're both in alignment on everything.
Yeah, so kind of the conclusion of the meeting, some action items were for Kristen and staff. We're looking at some conceptual regulatory proposals and changes to Title 16, CCR 311 and 311.1, which kind of holds advertisements and the recognition of specialty boards. Currently, 311.1 has defers to ACA and ICA, and we want to, really change that and put some more guardrails on the standards for what we consider a specialty board and that they meet certain requirements. We're reviewing the documents and the criteria from NCCA as an option, and then possibly adding in and/or equivalent as far as if that institution no longer exists. So that sort of staff has enough language. We're going to hopefully come back at end of September, beginning of October. We'll have some draft language and then we'll kind of go from there. So it's really to address the enforcement issues around advertisement and saying I'm a specialist, and it's in the eyes of protecting the public as far as who can actually say that, what is that criteria, and being able to define that a little bit more. We don't really have as much teeth when it comes to, an issue of free speech. I can go into that more if needed, but so it's really more addressing it through the 311 and 311.1 is my understanding. Kristen, do you have more to add on that?
Not too much. Both Dr. Azzolino and you summarized the meeting. I would say the only other piece that was discussed was the approach on how to deal with the issue. There's the issues of free speech and commercial speech. Of course, this proposal's around commercial speech. And then the subcommittee also engaged in a bit of a discussion on whether it becomes a legislative route or regulation. And the conclusion was regulation would be appropriate so that the board retains its control over the proposal. But beyond that, it was a very productive meeting.
Yeah, so the last part is important. So with that, is there any questions, comments, suggestions, thoughts? Okay, back to you, Dr. Adams.
Thank you. I'm excited for you guys, excuse me, not you guys, but you specialists to lead out on this. And I think we're going to get some good things in line there. So thank you. David, if we can open up agenda item 18 for public comment.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 18. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand. and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. 5 potential opportunities. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes. Thank you. Agenda item 19, the board's 26 sunset review looms out in the distance for us. And Kristen, you have the floor.
Thank you. So this agenda item will not take very long. Basically, as you mentioned, we're officially in our sunset review process. In the very end of June, we received the report template from the committee staff. That's included in the meeting materials, so you can see the information and the questions that we have to answer going into sunset review. The report has a due date of January 5th, 2026, but in reality, that report needs to be finalized by about December 1st of 2025 so that we have time to get it properly edited and put into format and actually submitted. So we need to have this thing done by the beginning of December. Staff, we're looking to accomplish 2 things today. The first of which is a bit of a divide and conquer approach where we assign the various sections of the sunset report out to committees so they can work with staff on developing those sections before bringing them back to the full board for review and approval of the report. We've kind of outlined some recommended assignments there in the meeting materials. And then second, if there's any high-level discussions we want to have on potential policy issues that could be developed and included in the sunset report, we could entertain a bit of discussion on that as well. The current list of those policy issues that need to be addressed through sunset, issue number 1, of course, is going to be our budget and fund condition. I spoke a bit about it during my executive officer report earlier today, but we've got a structurally imbalanced fund that we need to solve. Bottom line, so that's one issue that we're going to need to address through sunset. We've floated the idea of some additional enforcement tools. I want to just circle back with a bit of a update on what I kind of learned since our last meeting. I met with staff from the Medical Board of California. They have some provisions in their statutes that provide for the automatic revocation or suspension of a license under certain circumstances. The obvious of which, like if it's a sex offense or if a licensee has been incarcerated for a felony, they have provisions of law where basically in effect, once you've determined that has occurred, they transmit the case to the Attorney General's office for them to basically create a notice of an automatic revocation or automatic suspension that can be served on the licensee. So it's a bit of a fast track to getting the enforcement outcome we need in the most serious of cases. So my recommendation is for the enforcement committee to kind of explore that concept a little bit further, but consider including that ask in our sunset report. It would greatly enhance the tools that we have available to us as far as protecting the public. Another suggestion is that the board could consider trying to explore similar provisions for to strengthen our interim suspension order process. Again, we'll vet this through the enforcement committee, but you know, when you look at the Department of Motor Vehicles, DMV can automatically suspend a license upon a DUI arrest, but yet we have a very complicated process when we need to protect the public for arrests and convictions. The medical board tried to pursue something very similar recently with no success, but we can still make the ask. So we may want to consider developing some recommendations around that. And then another policy issue that's been brought up a few times has to do with sexual misconduct, and we've discussed at a very high level a proposal around potentially getting some sort of statutory authority where we can automatically impose at a minimum a chaperone requirement when a licensee has either been criminally charged with some sort of sexual misconduct, or the board has filed an accusation alleging sexual misconduct. So a few kind of policy items, primarily enforcement, that we would like the board to potentially consider making the ask during sunset review. And then again, we'd like to assign out portions of the sunset report to the committees so we can get it accomplished.
Thank you. Excellent summary. Yeah, I just want to reiterate that Kristen and I meet every week, and one of the topics that we discuss every week since I've been the chair has been in preparation for sunset. And so I want to assure the board that Kristen is well ahead of where she and her staff need to be. And any input that we can give that she's asking for here is just going to help dial this process in even further. So our discussions have made it very clear that she knows exactly what she's doing. She's prepared for sunset. She'll do a magnificent job in the preparation, and we're working together well on that and getting things in place. So anything that you come up with or suggest is going to be that much more helpful as we get prepared for this process in the beginning of next year. Having said that, is there any insights, suggestions, comments based on her report?
I just want to say, Kristen, as we've already spoken about, I'm thrilled that you're going to be pushing forward on those aspects in regards to the ask on how we can have some more teeth and further enforcement measures, because I think it is something that's extremely important. If we need to revoke or suspend a license, we should have the ability to do so quickly. It's even more dangerous than someone driving if they need to have their driver's license suspended. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I agree with that statement.
Okay. Anything else you need from us, Kristen, relative to agenda item 19?
Nope, I'm all set. We've got in the materials there the division of work here for sunset, and then we'll work with the committees to drill down into those items either through working groups or some public meetings. So I'm all set. Thank you.
Great. So having said that, I would encourage all committee chairs to begin correspondence, if you haven't already, with Kristen or your liaison with staff relative to scheduling your committees and your meetings. The sooner the better, because it's going to go faster than we can imagine. We're going to be in October here at our next board meeting. And so getting some of those committee meetings set before the next board meeting so that that information can be incorporated, and then we can make some decisions in the October board meeting that are relative to sunset will be a big help for the staff and for Kristen. So I would encourage you, if you haven't, get your email to her, get the pool, a doodle pool or whatever it is that you choose to use to connect with your committee, so that you can get those arranged and get them on the books, that they can properly notice, get those on the website and properly notice the public when your meeting is going to take place. Again, having said that, is there any other comments or suggestions or thoughts relative to agenda item 19? Hearing none, let's move to public comment for agenda item 19. David, thank you.
We are open for public comment on agenda item 19. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take about 9 seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes. Okay, future agenda items. I'll open it up. I know, Dr. Paris, we are going to try to get pace on the agenda for our next meeting.
Yeah, great.
Is
I
that
think I put
something you're
that
going to
forward
say?
as a future agenda item last time, so that's great. Yeah, I think they'd be happy to come and clarify, kind of their process and vetting courses and not just providers. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other suggestions for agenda items? Wonderful. And we will open it for public comment on future agenda items.
We are open for public comment on future agenda items. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. This might be your last opportunity to make a comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes. Thank you. Agenda item 20, we have no closed session today, so we can move to the next item. Do we even need to do public comment on closed session? I don't think we do we? I don't think we do. Okay, so we will move to adjournment. In closing, I want to thank everybody. We did really well. I think we pushed through. I appreciate all the comments and suggestions. I hope the staff feels like that they got what they needed from us. Again, I want to reiterate how much I appreciate all of you, your time, your efforts, and how important the work we do is, and that we continue to keep this congruency that this board has achieved in the last few years, to keep it going. And I appreciate Kristen, your leadership as our executive officer, and Tammy and your whole staff and your group. And again, welcome to our new staff members, and the integral part that you play in making everything go forward. And I hope you know how much we appreciate you, and wish for your success, which is our success, which is the public success. So thank you. And if there's nothing further in parting, then we stand adjourned. Everyone have a wonderful day. Drive safely and enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.